Welcome back to another episode of Twisted Metal Companion. You guys, this is going to be a very special episode. This is the very first official one after the release of season one of Twisted Metal. And we're going to do a round robin discussion type episode here. We got a couple drivers joining us. For those that have subscribed to us thus far, you guys will know the sitting in the passenger seat here. We got Tyler.
Hello.
And guest drivers, we have Radic.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And Gamer J Lee. How you doing, guys?
Hello, everyone.
All right. So for those that maybe follow us on Twitter, some of us got together before the release of Twisted Metal and decided to do a Twitter space and kind of give our thoughts about it. And maybe we could talk about some of the things we talked about, like the things that we hoped for and wanted to see. And also throwing it out now, this is going to be spoiler filled. So hopefully you guys binged the entire first season because we will get into details. Um, I think that's kind of it. So before we really get started about season one, just kind of a little introduction. Let's start with our guests first. Radic, can you kind of just share like your experience with Twisted Metal and why you decided to give this show a shot?
So I've been a fan of the Twisted Metal franchise, I would say, since the PS3 game. I was born in 98, so around 2012, I was 13 years old. Perfect time for me to be introduced to that kind of franchise. It was one of the first PlayStation 3 games I ever pre-ordered. So, and I remember the pre-order bonus, you can also get, excuse me, Twisted Metal Black, and you got Axel, like the guy in the tires, as a unlockable vehicle. So that's like a very nostalgic memory for me. And ever since then, I've been a fan of the franchise. And unfortunately, that was probably like the worst time to start being a fan of the franchise, because that's when the franchise became dormant for 7 years up until the announcement of the TV show. And when the TV show got announced in 2019, I was like, oh, PlayStation is bringing back Twisted Metal. Okay, I'm intrigued. And then 4 years later, the show comes out, and I just been obsessed with the development of the show ever since. PlayStation doesn't really revive dormant franchises a lot. So whenever one gets mined, and this time it was for a TV show, I was like, okay, like, why Twisted Metal? Like, I really like Twisted Metal, but why are you guys focusing on Twisted Metal out of all franchises? And then so I kept following it. That's when I learned that Michael Jonathan Smith was going to be involved. I've heard nothing but great things about Cobra Kai. I never seen the Karate Kid movie. I've seen the Jaden Smith one, but I haven't seen any of the other ones. Then I heard Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick was involved, the writers of Zombieland and Deadpool, two movies I really enjoy. And then the cast is just insane for this show. So I had really high hopes, and I'm glad it delivered. So the years of anticipation and waiting was worth it.
Awesome. Just to kind of add to your you questioning like the whole PlayStation thing. Cobra Kai and the Karate Kid, they belong to Sony. I wonder if there's some elbow rubbing, on
Oh,
Michael
interesting.
Jonathan Smith's part, and maybe he was able to be attached to this project because of that. The circle might be a little bit smaller, as opposed to shopping it elsewhere. Um, Gamer Jaylee, what about you?
Well, for me, I've been playing Twisted Metal. I think when I started playing was if I was six, it would have been 1999 when I got my PS1, the slim console, the little small one that you could attach the LED screen to. But I remember getting it in Christmas of 1999, and the first game that I got was Twisted Metal 2 because my dad had already bought me Crash Bandicoot 2 and Spyro for Christmas the next day, but he wouldn't we go to Game Crazy for people that know what a Game Crazy is. But we went there and I'm like looking for Crash and I'm looking for Spyro. That's all I wanted. My grandmother got me this console. That's all I want. And he's standing in front of the Twist Metal or Spyro and Crash. He's like, no, I think they're out, son. I don't think they have any. How about this game? And he handed me Twist Metal 2. I was like, I want Spyro. I want Crash. I want no. But we bought it. We bought an extra controller. We bought a memory card, and we played through the entire game on the first night. And unfortunately, when you play co-op, you can't get an ending. You can't get an ending. But we played through it, and for years and years, we went to Twisted Metal 3 and Twisted Metal 4. Then I think we actually got Small Brawl before we got Black because we didn't have a PS2 at the time. And Black is the game where I fell in love with like the universe and like I was really sold it. And also gave me the most nightmares as a child. Literally seeing people get killed or kill themselves or something along those lines. And that was the game that gave me nightmares when I was like, I think 10 or 11, somewhere around there. Or no, I've been 8 years old. So great start to the franchise. And I've been 10 years old and you're already seeing clowns kill people. But I had been in love with the series. And then in 2012, when I heard that Twisted Metal was coming to the PS3, I was super excited because it had been dead since 2005 with the release of Head On. And then you had Extra Twisted Edition that came out on the PS2 in 2007, I believe, which are great, both great. I would recommend both of them. Honestly, they're the definitive sequels to Twisted Metal 2. But the one thing I would say is that with 2012, I felt like it was a departure. Wasn't really in love with it. And plus, I had no way to really record it due to the PS3's HDCP. So I played it, didn't really get involved with it. And then it went dormant for another 7 years, like our friend here mentioned. And then we hear about the TV show. And when I heard about it, I was like, nah, no, don't believe it. I'll believe it whenever it's out and I can actually watch it. And then a few months ago, we got the first teaser trailer and I was like, okay, this might have possibilities. And then we get the thong song clip. And then I'm like, oh no, this might not have possibilities. And then we actually got the show this past week. And I think that it kind of rectified some of those criticisms and worries that we might have had. So that's my history.
Stating myself here, I do remember Game Crazy, but I go even further back to the electronic boutique, boutique or rather, EB. Is it EB Games? Did they
EB
change it to EB
Games, yep.
Games? Yeah,
Yep.
later on. So that's what I'm more familiar with. Tyler, what about you? Obviously you're riding shotgun on this podcast, but I think it's kind of nice that you're not you're on social media, but not like I am, making the presence
Mhm.
with the Twisted Metal. So we don't get a chance to talk about these things, which I think will make for like an interesting conversation when we start our coverage. But yeah, you might have mentioned it before, probably in one of our first episodes, but yeah, just a little background on Twisted Metal for you.
Yeah, I think I've played most of the original games up till Black. I never owned them, but whenever I was at a friend's house, and they had them, or occasionally I would rent one with the console when I would spend a weekend and rent an entire PlayStation. But yeah, I never really kept up with it. I kind of know, picking up stuff like through cultural osmosis, just like, oh, I'll dabble here and there. But, I know Sweet Tooth. I know, when one was coming out and kind of the reception to it. But yeah, it's never really, heavy into it. And until, I think you were the one that told me that they were making the show. And my initial reaction was like, oh, well, okay, that's probably gonna be pretty bad. 'Cause it's a video game property, not translated, to film and TV very well, very often. And then what was it? The thong song teaser didn't really do a whole lot for me. So my expectations were kind of low going into it. But not the case, I'll say.
Awesome,
Finally
yeah.
watching it.
Yes, we will definitely give our initial thoughts and to kind of regurgitate a little bit for those that are finding us for the first time. I'm going to be the most casual of this group here in terms of a fan of the games. I remember the games. I remember as far as part two because that's when Axel's introduced, right?
Yeah, that was his first introduction, along with Mr. Slam, which they did
We'll
a
get to.
very interesting
My favorite
adaptation.
character. My favorite character.
Yeah. Well, are you talking about the show or the game?
The show.
Okay,
Okay.
I feel if you're gonna show us, you got to commit, and I mean maybe because it's on Peacock, but it's Peacock. Come on, guys!
Oh, yeah.
Like you
Oh,
give it
yeah.
to us. You might as well, But the casualist of fans, I might have owned the first one, the 95 game, and I feel maybe rented, the second one from Blockbuster because that was the thing back in the day. You used to be able to go to a video rental store and actually, grab the game and rent it for a few days. I owned PlayStation 1 and 2. Jay Lee, I remember the PlayStation with the screen that you can purchase separately and add to that. I do remember all of that. So
That thing killed my original PS1. Just so you know, that LED screen fried
oh,
the power supply or something inside my old PS1, and I could just smelt like burnt components. Like that
oh
thing
yeah.
was a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I don't miss those days for sure. I mean, I'm more used to like blowing cartridges. So like when
Yeah.
past
Oh
like
wow.
PS2, like that became more of my blind spot. So just a little, tangent inside baseball here. I was a teenage father, so I had my first kid the end of junior year. So a lot of the gaming went away, during high
Right.
school. So I kind of mentioned before that I'm more of a Mortal Kombat fan, so I grew up on that. Street
Clearly.
Fighter. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I see Goro back there, Raiden,
Yep. You
Scorpion.
got
Yep, I
the
see them
Mortal
all.
Kombat
Yes, Mortal Kombat
sign.
2. That's my favorite. Mortal
Yep.
Kombat 2 is my favorite arcade game, hands down. Quarter up. So that was my era. Other games. I'm blanking. Oh, Killer Instinct. I used to rock with Killer Instinct. And when it came to driving, I definitely remember Twisted Metal. I couldn't have named Sweet Tooth. Like if you showed me the clown like Twisted Metal, but I couldn't tell you his name. And Axel, I remember Axel because like how do you forget a character with
Yeah.
arms as wheels, or attached to wheels? And I vaguely remember Calypso's name, but I didn't remember him being like the guy who grants all the wishes. I didn't even remember the wishes. So I think I was very much like a kid. I was so young. It was very much like I'm gonna play this game and have fun with it. But the games that I really grew up playing was like Need for Speed, Gran Turismo, and I think that's pretty much it. And in recent memory, my middle child who just turned 11, he's a huge fan of Dirty Driving. So if you guys still play the arcades, it's basically what Twisted Metal is, but it's an arcade version. So you got like
Hmm.
all these different vehicles. It's demolition, it's racing, and you pick up weapons along the way as well. So very
Okay.
similar idea. Yeah,
All
not
right.
as
I'll have to look into
silly
that.
characters, but yeah, yeah, Dirty Driving. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. I don't believe it's on any like gaming console other than the arcade, so not a lot of those around really. But with the TV show, like I've pretty much had a pulse on it since it was announced, and that's because we've kind of been talking about him, Michael Jonathan Smith, who is a writer on Cobra Kai, also producer. And shout outs to Jay Lee for wearing the Cobra Kai t-shirt. You
Hey.
want to flash that out, Sakai Takai. So there's a cool shirt. I haven't seen that design yet, but I've interviewed Michael, who I believe a lot of the cast and crew refer to him as MJ with this production. I've interviewed him 5 times, and he is I enjoy a lot of the episodes on Cobra Kai, but often the things that I reference are from like Michael slash MJ's episodes, and he's the one who has written a lot of like very emotional Miyagi episodes, like the letters from Miyagi from season 4, Daniel walking into Miyagi's room in season 5. So he can write all that stuff, but then turn around and show run the show like Twisted Metal. It's quite amazing, but just the fact that he was going to be show running, I was kind of all in at the jump. So I kind of started the Twitter account and just kind of let it sit there until things started coming out. And
Smart.
now, yes, and now with the strike and other productions being shut down, including Cobra Kai for its last season, they were only able to film the first episode because that's the only script that was pretty much complete. And so writer strike happens, all the writers go back home, then eventually the rest of the cast and crew. And so this kind of came at a timely manner. Twisted Metal comes out and we're able to produce some content for people out there that are able to tune in. So that kind of came at a good time, but kind of seeing the positive reviews and just positivity out there on social media. I think a lot of people are pretty excited for what could possibly come. But again, with everything going on or the lack thereof, we may not be getting any like season 2 news for quite a while. On that note, for those that don't follow me on I believe I shared it on Instagram only. I'm not sure about Twitter. I may have, but anyway, because of the SAG-AFTRA strike, the actors they can't make like make podcast appearances, interviews. They can't promote the show. They can't post stuff on their social media. But I've been seeing a lot of the cast and crew going on, basically tag diving. Looking for anything that's hashtag Twisted Metal, and a lot of them are like liking the post or they're commenting, with hearts, things of that nature, just showing, an appreciation for the support from the fans, so I think they're out there at the very least doing that. And I know a lot of people, they can't share things right now, but once a fair deal is reached, then we can hope to see a lot more behind the scenes. But there was a few of them at the very least, Anthony Mackie and Stephanie Beatriz, who did like a mini photo dump the day before the strike. So they have some stuff up now. But a lot of people behind the scenes are sharing a lot of things too, and I've been coming across that as well. So I know we're gonna get a lot of names mixed up, or maybe not remember who, like the names of certain actors and things, because on social media, I've recognized a lot of these accounts and names through interaction, but I haven't spoken to a lot of them. And so I'm slowly finding out like who is who or did what on the show. So I haven't gone through like the cast listing or anything like that yet, but I only just found out that Chris S. I'm blanking on his last name, was Pizza Boy. And I'm like, okay, like he likes my posts often.
Yeah, Chris Silcox, I think is his name.
Silcox.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, shout out to him. So when Radic, actually shout outs to you for making that connection for me. I was like, oh, Chris is Pizza Boy because I saw your tweet with him, and I was like, I know Chris's account from Instagram for sure. I did not know he was going to be Pizza Boy or was Pizza Boy. So let's go through the same order and kind of just give us your initial thoughts of this first season of Twisted Metal.
I will keep it as brief as I can. I thought it exceeded my expectations, to be honest. I'm not really familiar with Peacock's original content programming, so I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know how bloody it was going to be, how gory it was, how crude the jokes were going to be, and I thought it all landed really well. I think it's done with such love and care and reverence for the Twisted Metal franchise. I really appreciate it's carving out its own story, its own path, its own lore, world, characters, which which I think is pretty common for the franchise. I really like how each game has its own identity. Like Twisted Metal 3 is completely different than Twisted Metal 2, which is completely different than Twisted Metal Small Brawl, different than Twisted Metal Black, and so on and so on. So I was kind of expecting that for this show as well. So I'm really happy it wasn't a one-for-one adaptation to like Twisted Metal Black, because like I love Twisted Metal Black, but like the game is the game. So I would like to see the show try its own thing. So I'm really glad they did that. Well, the one thing I was really surprised by was the way I cared about these characters. I think the writing in some of these scenes is really well done. Even the first episode with that Champagne Supernova needle drop with Anthony Mackie, it's just him vibing out. But Anthony Mackie plays this so well, where he's just like looking at his family photograph, and it's like a kind of a somber moment. And then like throughout the season, I'm just like really caring about these characters. I think Stephanie Beatrice is quiet, an original character, so she's not from the games, kind of a blank slate character, and I thought they nailed it, like a home run out the park. Episode 6 with Quiet, I think, is like fantastic. Sweet Tooth, of course, iconic. I really like the interpretation they went with him, along with all the other characters as well. Yeah, I can't really say I would like the show blew me away, honestly. Like it really did. So I'm just really happy that Twisted Metal is back and the show was actually great. So 2 thumbs up.
All right. Well, I guess my best way to say this is I went in with extremely low expectations. I was excited, don't get me wrong, but I still had the bad taste of the thong song in my mouth, literally, to the point that I was like, okay, this is either going to be a adaptation that is going to have some cringy moments, but I'm going to love overall, or this is going to be a total cringe fest and I'm going to regret all the hard work I've put towards like, looking into all this. And surprise, surprise, it wasn't, because within a day I had binged all 10 episodes. I was actually in between lunch breaks and 10-minute breaks at work trying to get in as much of the episodes as I could. And I remember after doing a long shift, I got home, finished the rest of the episodes, and during the last two episodes, episodes 9 and 10, I remember screaming at the top of my lungs, feeling like a little kid again, because those to me were the closest to the Twisted Metal we know. Like, there was so much to it, but that doesn't write off all the other episodes that we got throughout the show. All the other episodes throughout the show were amazing. Now, was there a few episodes I didn't like? Yeah, there was one episode that I really just felt like it was a slog, and that was the restaurant episode. It gave lots of backstory towards Quiet and her brother Loud, but it was also just kind of a slog to get through because it was so focused on being in this one location the majority of the time. Besides, I think we also during that episode got to see Sweet Tooth's adventures off to Blackfield, which was, the sweet side of that. No pun intended. But overall, I love the series. The best way I could say that this series aims for is, if you're expecting to be like Black or 2012, then no, it's not going to be like that. But if you're expecting it to be kind of in the humor of, say, a Twisted Metal 2 through Head On and Small Brawl and 3 and 4, then that's what the kind of humor you're going to get, with a little bit more modernness to it. That's the best way I can describe it. Overall, I'm excited for season 2. Again, I'm a big wrestling fan. I love Samoa Joe. The one thing I'll say is, when these strikes hopefully end on good terms and everything gets settled, pay attention to AEW Collision. Pay attention to Samoa Joe. He's right now got a whole head of hair. Wait for that head to go bald again. That's when we know season 2 is coming.
Yeah, I love that reference. Just to take it back to Cobra Kai real quick, Jay Lee and Tyler, you guys will get this reference. But Terry Silver, right? Like, people are always keeping an eye on that ponytail. Like, if it's long, he's not filming anytime soon. And then once they get it nice and tight and the length of a ponytail and all that. So yeah, people are always keeping an eye out for like Jacob Bertrand, who plays Hawk. What color is his mohawk going to be? Things of that nature. So Tyler, I'm really excited because intentionally we haven't been talking, because I wanted to save all of the conversations for our recording. So I know that prior to scheduling this discussion, you had told me, like, oh, I watched like the first 3 episodes and hoping to finish the rest by the weekend. And I think it was yesterday. You're like, yep, finished it all last night. So that I thought that was a good sign. So yeah, your thoughts on season 1?
I kind of similarly came into the show like Jay Lee, pretty low expectations, and absolutely blew those expectations away. I really enjoyed it. For me, there weren't any episodes that really dragged all the way through. I was fully with it, anticipating the next one. It's funny, the restaurant episode is actually one of my favorites. I love a good bottle episode. But also that's the episode that shows that the people in this universe are fucking twice in a ball pit. They're not going to shy away from stuff like that. The violence, very over the top. Really liked it, and it wasn't afraid to get kind of mean with the violence, especially when you see more of Stone's backstory. You kind of see how far they'll kind of go with that stuff, not shying away from it. And yeah, I would say the only thing that was kind of a knock against the show for me was some of the needle drops. Like, some of the times I'm just like, maybe I'm missing something. I don't know why this is the song that you're choosing to score this scene with. Mainly there's a Cake song that shows up near the end that I was just like, but get rid of this. Just give me an actual score. Give me,
Cake song.
Is the one during the final battle scene.
Yeah.
I didn't mind that one. honestly, there's still two artists that I want to see in season two. Please, I want to hear Limp Bizkit's "Rollin'" at some point, and any Rob Zombie. Give me something. He's so influential in 3 and 4, and that's the one thing I can take away from those games I love.
Say the Holy Man would be perfect for a Dragula, you know.
Yeah.
Those are
Oh,
definitely words. Yes.
and yeah, I loved the episode with the Holy Man and Jason Mantzoukas. I just like give me more of that. I loved
I
it.
can't believe did you recognize him off the bat when we did our trailer breakdown?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you didn't even mention, and I think it was our Twitter space. Radic mentioned Jason Mantzoukas. Like, oh, that was him. Okay, because like I'm more familiar with his voice from How Did This Get Made? I'm a big fan of that podcast, so I recognize him more by his voice. And to pimp out a previous movie that Anthony Mackie did was The Night Before, which is one of my favorite Christmas movies. Mantzoukas is also in that playing a drunk mall Santa Claus, or he's dressed up as Santa Claus and has a fight with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Which in that movie, Anthony Mackie also fucks a young lady in a very similar manner as he does with Quiet on Twisted Metal. So there's a couple of some of that stuff. Um, but for me, coming from the Cobra Kai fandom, like I am going to be drawing like many parallels, and I'll try to keep it light on this particular discussion. But there's going to be, as Tyler, you and I, get through our episodic reviews, I'll definitely be making some parallels that I've seen. I already shared one earlier today that Stu with the red headband reminded me of Stingray with the red headband. So. Um, and again, Michael being part of all 5 seasons of Cobra Kai thus far, there's definitely some DNA, from Cobra Kai that I see with the show. They're both 10 episodes. They're both, roughly 30 minutes each. As you continue on with each season, Cobra Kai kept on the runtime kept on getting a little bit longer. We might be able to get that with Peacock. Who knows? But what? Okay, so I loved the first season. I thought the writing was very good. I thought they did a lot of great setup and callback to things as well. Like for example, I believe it's all in the first episode where it's John Doe and Quiet and they're driving, and then there's that part where John slams on the brakes and then Quiet hits her head. Fast forward to like later on in the episode, they're in the car again. He's like, "Have you learned nothing?" And she kind of thinks about it. He's like, "Oh yeah, my seatbelt." Before he slams on the brake again. So I just love all those setups because watching it one and a half way through. So I'm on my second rewatch right now. Everything is deliberate, right? Everything they say, everything they do is deliberate. It's always going to come back to that. I just love not even a foreshadowing, but in one of the flashbacks we see um a chase with like the cops and Loud and Quiet. And Loud, you see his ear is ripped off, and most people would probably think on that first watch it's like, oh, something just happened right before this. But no, actually the ear got cut off in a flashback scene, in one of those other towns. So we got some backstory on that. So it's really wild. I don't think they were trying to like give us any sort of like flipping of the script a la Cobra Kai, but they kept me guessing, which is good. I think that's just great writing, because if you're able to kind of call things out ahead of time, then it's a little formulaic. But I thought it was really good. I'm not the hugest fan of bottle episodes, but I do like them. I often think about The Fly from Breaking Bad, great bottle episode. Um, Same thing with this one in the restaurant. I think it gives us a chance to kind of breathe, a little levity, pump the brakes a little bit, so to speak. Um, but I love the two leads. I love that John Doe is a character from the game, but clearly this is a different type of John Doe, and quite completely original. This does allow them to write these characters any way they want, without any sort of baggage from the video games, and without people saying, well, hold on, because it will take them out of the scene if they are too close to the game. Is going to make that gamer think like, wait a minute, okay, they changed it, or like your mind is going to start to wander and start thinking about the game as opposed to like focusing on the scene. So I do appreciate that, and the ones that they do incorporate from the games they're more of your side characters, and I just love what they did with all of them. Jay Lee, I'll wait. I am excited to hear what you have to say about Granny Dread, just because I know what you've said about her before, and referencing like Mike and Stu. So we're going to talk all about that. So maybe Radic, where do you want to start off this discussion after giving our initial thoughts?
Um, I do want to give even more of a shout out to Anthony Mackie because I thought, like, as a lead actor, I thought he killed it. He nailed the comedy. He nailed the serious and somber moments. There's a great moment in episode 8 where Quiet, like, unintentionally causes Evelyn to be captured by the Holy Men, and John Doe is like pissed off. He's like, "Fuck," and like that kind of caught me off guard because John is so happy, he's so like naive, half glass half full kind of guy, but you take away Evelyn and you see the dark side in him. It's like, oh my god. So like I thought Anthony Mackie really played that well. I think the showrunners choosing John Doe from Twisted Metal Black as the main character is kind of like the best case scenario because like that's what a John Doe is, kind of a blank slate. So in the game, he's like I think he's like an undercover FBI agent who got amnesia because like a bomb exploded. And I like how they kind of kept like the similar amnesia aspect, but they totally did their own thing. And I thought it worked really well. I think Anthony Mackie is just like one of those actors who has great chemistry with like anybody, really. He's just like such a charismatic and charming dude. So I can't give enough props to our main character, John Doe, Anthony Mackie.
Yeah, I think we should just keep it with John Doe. Let's talk about episodes and what have you. But just to kind of piggyback that, Radic, I agree with you. He's got great chemistry. He's just a great person from like all the interviews I've seen. There was one in particular. I don't remember the outlet, but it was a gentleman that has interviewed him before, and Anthony Mackie even like makes a point to like, hey, good seeing you again. Like he just seems like a really, really nice dude. But I do love his relationship with his car. People I don't know if many people thought it was weird. It's just like, okay, he loves his car, cool. But I love how they give us the layers of like he really loves his car. Why does he love his car? Well, shit, his car saved his life. And so we can talk about the backstory and stuff like that. Jay Lee, where are you with the John Doe character?
So when I heard that Anthony Mackie would be playing the role of John Doe and basically taking that, I already had known, okay, they can't go the same route as the John Doe of Black. Black and this show have totally two different vibes, two different feelings to it, right? I was worried, but at the same time, I've seen Anthony Mackie through the Marvel, movies and so on and so forth. That's what I know him from. And as soon as the first episode dropped, I got the feel for it. I got the feel for what he was going for. And again, I have to say this, Anthony Mackie and Stephanie basically took the whole show and ran with it. And honestly, I cared about them more than I did a Sweet Tooth or, Outlaw or any of the other characters. I cared about these characters, one being a entirely new character that I was like, okay, she's going to end up being this character or something at the end. Like, there's got to be something to it. I cared about these characters more than I did the characters that I expected to care about. Now, did I care about those, the main, characters we all know and love, like a Sweet Tooth, like a, Outlaw, like Twister and so on? Yeah, I did. But at the same time, it didn't take away my attention from the main protagonists that were basically telling the story from beginning to end. That was my main thing with it. I will say that I think when it came to the characters, they twisted them, no pun intended again, they twisted them in a way to fit this show better than their game counterparts. Like you mentioned Granny Dread. Let's talk about Granny Sutra, as they refer to her in the show. So instead of her wanting the world to fuck off and her to be able to watch her TV, she said, well, the world's fucked, we better get on fucking. And that's what she did during the apocalypse. That was her whole thing. I thought that her comedy was great. I thought she was great. They had a lovely send off to her. I did like the inclusion of Flower Power, aka Amber. I loved the inclusion of Miranda Watts. There were Twisted Metal 3 characters that were included that I loved the inclusion of. That I absolutely didn't mind the inclusion of those characters. But there was also characters, again, the bar scene where I was just like, okay, how is this going to be done? Because they did well by these Twisted Metal 3 characters. How are they going to do these Twisted Metal 4 characters? And I will say, I had some harsh words for Pizza Boy in my videos and in the Twitter space we did. The fact that Anthony Mackie's punching him and he's squeaking was hilarious. He's like, what is this jacket made of? You just hear squeaky toy noises. Again, Bloody Mary, I'm excited to see where they go with that. With her hopefully driving Spectre. I did see a car during the beginning of episode 9 that Anthony Mackie comes across that I thought, oh, that would be the perfect car for Spectre, this nice blue car. But again, we're gonna have to wait and see. I am just glad that they did well by these characters and the main characters didn't take away from what people expected from the show.
We'll definitely get to some of those other characters, but anything with like John you want to touch on, like any of his scenes?
I would say my favorite scenes with John have to be as much as I went off about the bottle episode, like you were mentioning, I would say that his comedy during that of like, she's like, you need help with that burn. Like, let me just help you. And he's like, I got this. And he's just giving her the smug look all rubbing on the table. And she's like, you've done this before, haven't you? Like him during that, the comedy during the underground Calypso scene, where they get the package and he doesn't know what a pizza is. It's just like, it's like a wheel with bread and cheese. He's like, screw that. I want one of those. Can we have one of those? Like he from beginning to end made me laugh, even in his serious moments. Like you mentioned, episode 8, where it's Evelyn, right? And you see him go from the guy cracking jokes and not being able to shut the hell up to what the fuck did you just do? And him like snapping at her. She didn't even expect that. She didn't take Mary serious when she said that Evelyn is his ride or die. And she meant that. And now she's realizing at the beginning of the episode, oh God, I really did screw up. I really did cause this and I got to help him. But then she realized this guy's willing to die for this car. I'm not. We have a job to do. Like, I got to help him realize it. And we see how that episode plays out. I would say that, yeah, definitely episode 8 with the preacher. I like the interpretation of the preacher. I'm not gonna lie, Coke Jesus, God bless. But yeah, like
was that like wrestling / capoeira or something? Like I mean,
capoeira.
Yeah, I mean he's looking good, but I wonder how much of that is actually Jason Mantzoukas and it versus all of it, 100%. Yeah, Paul Shear's probably somewhere in there as well. I love that moment. Jaylee, you talk about how he can it can be a serious scene and then he can flip it. This one isn't like a good example of that, but one of my favorite scenes is when they're both getting like it's the term waterboarded, where their heads are covered. Yeah, so what's going on? And then like Stu fucks up that line. It's like, wait, hold on. Like I'm paraphrasing, but basically John says something like, oh, you fucked up that line, player. Like if you said it right, it could have been really, really good, So and they both just start laughing at him at that moment. Like that's the least like ideal moment to be laughing, but
right.
That's how bad Stu was. So I really like that. Tyler, what about you and your thoughts on John?
Like I was kind of trying to rack my brain, like what other Anthony Mackie roles am I familiar with, and like outside of the Marvel stuff, which is kind of whatever for me.
We Are Marshall. Did you watch that one?
No.
Notorious. He played Tupac.
Nope. No. So going down his credits, I think Pain and Gain, the Michael Bay movie with The Rock and Mark Wahlberg.
Right.
Was probably the only other thing I think of, which I loved him in that.
You gotta watch The
Uh,
Night Before. He has a great scene with Michael Shannon.
you've recommended that to me,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I thought he did great in the role as John Doe. I'm not familiar with the character, and I could honestly see them just thinking, oh, he has amnesia. Or we'll just call him John Doe. Oh, look at that! There's a character named that. Perfect. Just that I'm not familiar with it, so maybe they pulled some more from that. Um, but yeah, he's really funny. He has that like you were talking about, that upbeat attitude in the worst possible situations. Um, and I mean, I think he just nailed the role. He's a great lead, and it makes me more interested to go and see some of his other work.
Yeah, I'm a fan for sure. Let's pivot over to Stephanie Beatriz, who plays Quiet, and that's the only name we know her as. I did find it interesting that Richard Cabral, I believe his name is, who plays Loud, the fact that they're credited as Loud and Quiet. So I just assumed that was the name that they went by. But the fact that Quiet even says like, oh, no, that's she's fine with John calling her that. I was like, oh, so has another name. They're just not revealing it yet. So that's the other thing with the show. This is another thing that I have observed with like Cobra Kai. They are very patient. They don't, they don't keep all their eggs in one basket, right? Even like some of the reveals, as much as they want to show you some of these teases for like characters they're going to incorporate later, we don't get them until literally like the last few minutes of the series. um that's kind of where I'm at with that. But I just love that Quiet is very capable. She's a badass in her own right. I just love her relationship with her brother and how much she adores the shit out of him. Like he's all she's got, and how she's along for the ride. And both her and John are so broken. Like they really need each other, and they really help each other out. But I want to reference like this is something that I missed before. Like I think we all know she wants to go after Stone because of her brother, but I love that the last time like the last few moments of her brother's life, like he says, it's either eat my ass or eat ass, motherfucker. Like, is it eat my ass?
Eat my ass,
Eat
motherfucker.
my ass. Okay, yeah. And then she uses it later on. I didn't catch that until my second viewing that she says it to, I think, Shepard.
Yeah, she says it to
Yeah.
Shepard in episode 3
Three.
Okay,
when,
3.
or no, actually it was the end of episode 2, right before the end of the episode, is when
She
she
kills him in
says it.
3.
Right.
She kills.
Yeah.
Okay. So she says it in 2. So
Yeah, she
yeah,
says I was getting them mixed up because that's where it mostly focuses in episode 3. But right at the end of episode 2, after they're done with dealing with Sweet Tooth, they get to the gate and basically she sees Shepard. She gets out of the car, pulls out the Magnum, says, "Eat my ass, motherfucker," and then they tase him. By the way, I have to say, Anthony Mackie, best actor to ever get tased. The way he got tased is how I expect a video game character, a real life person, anyone to get tased, and they did good there. But I like how Anthony Mackie referred to like during the like interrogation scene where he's like, why did you tell that cop to eat your ass?" Like that. It was just hilarious.
Yeah, there's definitely some history there. You're not just telling any rando to eat my ass, right? That's not her
Right.
catchphrase. Yeah, there was definitely some history there. Any
Right.
more thoughts on Quiet? And then we'll move to Tyler.
Radic, you want to go?
Yeah, I think Stephanie Beatrice is like one of the biggest surprises for me in the show. When I heard they're making the original character as like one of the leads, I was like, we'll see. It's like, why couldn't this just be like Krista Sparks or like an interpretation of Dollface? We'll get to Dollface later. But I think Stephanie Beatrice, the only things I know her from are Encanto and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, probably her two most famous roles before this show. And I thought she nailed it. I really like how she's like the complete opposite of John in the beginning of the series. John's like this very talkative, easygoing guy, and Quiet, who just lost her brother and just like hates the world, doesn't speak at all, just wants nothing to do with Anthony Mackie. She just wants his car. But then the chemistry and like the way, like especially that movie theater scene and when like she starts to break her shell and like they're just like making up their own lines watching. I don't know what the movie is. I know the Master of
Blank Man.
Disguise movie. Nightman?
Blank
That was
Blank
Man.
the
Man.
name of
Blank
it,
Man.
Blank Man.
Blank Man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love Blank Man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Love Blank Man. Master of Disguise was a movie my wife and I watched when we started dating in 2002. That movie was 2003, and there was another Knight's Tale. That I love all the
And
references. This was
Punch Drunk
definitely speaking
Love.
to me. I did not. I missed that one. I missed that one. But yeah, some cool poster. I was just like, damn, what did Dana Carvey do? He just deserves that. I mean, I know it
Yeah.
wasn't a great movie, but it is
He,
funny that they even referenced the line that I remember the most: "Turtle, turtle, turtle." But yeah, really, really, really
So
silly,
like
silly movie.
when it comes to that, like Sandy, since again 2002, like do you think that they might have had that Sandy in there like as a preview that it was coming or something like that? Since that movie came out in 2003, since they've been pretty dang accurate with the like time accuracies throughout it.
Yeah, I don't know if I think maybe things were still kind of running, and then I'm kind of theorizing here, but the fact that there's like some like 2003 posters, perhaps that town in particular, they were going okay after the fall, which I love that that's what it's called. Maybe around 2003 when they started evacuating, that city, that town. Maybe that's what it is because in a clip prior to the show's release, MJ mentions that, in their world, uh, the apocalypse started in 2002, right? That's what he said,
Right.
2002. And so there's references here and there, like the talk about the Motorola Razor, which I feel was very 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't have one. I think I was one of those guys. It's like, oh, it's too popular right now. I'm gonna wait. And then the iPhones came out, so I just waited too long. But yeah, that was kind of my guess because I was like, oh, some of those are like 2003 references. So I just feel like certain towns they probably just took a little bit longer to evacuate. Just my guess. Um, so Radek, did you finish up on Quiet? Oh, just real quick, I feel Quiet has like the most ranges. I love her scenes with Stone, especially the when they get captured too. Just the look in her eyes. Tyler, we talked about that in our breakdown where I was like, oh, you can see the hate, over her. So yeah, I love that character.
Oh yeah, me too. Like those scenes with Stone, like, and you see like the fear and anger in her eyes, and she just like spits on him with no remorse. She actually like speaks, and Anthony's like, "Yo, like, why are you talking right now, man? Like, what are you doing?" But like, I really like how her character grows by the end of the season. I really like that contrast. Like, I think it's this episode 8 where like she's the one who's like talking, trying to get John in a good mood, and John's like dead silent. So it's a perfect contrast from like where they were in the beginning of the season to later in the season. And I love like the way they ended with her character, how she becomes like the Robin Hood, like stealing from other milkmen, taking 50% of their like order and just giving it to the people. I thought that was a really, really cool conclusion to her arc in the season.
Yeah, I think it's smart too. It's a lot more safe for her, less danger, especially with her encounter of the Jeff Daniels lookalike Vulture. It just I was just thinking like, oh, it looks like young Harry from Dumb and Dumber. But yeah, I do love that as well. The whole Robin Hood thing and what she does for John. That just shows how much she cares. They easily. I feel like it would have been really tropey for them to get in the fight right there. Instead, she's like, no, this is what you wanted. You go. And goes as far as to shoot him too. That I didn't expect.
Yeah.
So, Tyler, what about you? Your thoughts on Quiet?
Yeah, not too much more to add that hasn't already been said. Yeah, I think she did great. She showed a lot of range. Her ability to last an entire scene without saying anything, but you know exactly what she's thinking, what she's feeling. She's able to portray that really well. The episode when they're stuck in the restaurant and it's flashing back and showing like where her and Loud how they came to where they are, got split up and everything. I thought it was great, like especially the flashback parts of that episode where you're just like seeing the lockdown of the burger joint while there's like an active shooter outside.
Right.
And yeah, it just watching kind of the horror on her face as she's seeing all the other, whatever they call them, as servants, slaves, whatever it was, and just you're just noticing like all of the different body parts that are missing from them, and you had just seen earlier, oh, they're all complimenting each other on their finger necklaces and or ear necklaces and finger earrings and stuff, and realizing, oh, that's what happened to her finger. But yeah, I thought she was great.
Just to kind of touch on that very specific flashback, I just love how let me see, I forget in what episode it's referenced in who even says it, but somebody mentions, oh, she's from the OC or something. That's why she doesn't
Agent
talk, right?
Stone says that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
Agent Stone mentions that.
Yeah. And so like at first you're just like, okay, whatever. And then later on we actually see where she was from, like, oh, that makes sense. Like I said, everything is deliberate. And to kind of go back to the first episode, or is it the second episode? Maybe it was the second episode where whichever episode where John's like, "Hey, blink twice if yes or whatever," and then that comes back. Oh, blink twice. Yeah.
Episode
Okay,
two.
episode two. Gotcha. Got it. Yeah, and then he comes
Yeah.
back with during the Sweet Tooth performance, and we'll get to him in a little bit. So yeah, I just again I love the callback to that. They set that up very nicely. So before we get to Sweet Tooth, let's kind of because we kind of been mentioning but haven't talked a whole lot. We kind of alluded to his backstory, but Agent Stone, Tyler, I know that you were excited for this character because of the actor Thomas Hayden
Mhm.
Church. I thought he was really good, and I thought until we saw the flashback, I was like, "What's that scar? Did that come from the accident? Did that come from Quiet or the chase?" And so we actually get that as well. That they gave him the scar, which they didn't even need to. He just got like, hit in the face by the buttstock of a rifle. So super random. Well, not random, but did not see that coming. And on my first watch, did not realize that the pregnant lady's husband took off with his porno. I didn't see that the first time, so the second time I laughed my ass off. So I love those little touches. Just blink and you miss it, kind of gags.
Uh,
Whoever.
is it Tyler? Okay, I'll
Uh,
go. Okay,
John.
so
Go ahead, go
yeah,
ahead.
my only touchstone for Thomas Hayden Church is Spider-Man 3. I feel like I am kind of dating myself. Yeah, I was born in 98, so he's like Spider-Man 3 and Spider-Man No Way Home was the last one, I think. So those are the only roles I know Thomas Hayden Church from. So I didn't really know what to expect from this performance. And I thought he was a fantastic antagonist. He was serious, he was mean, he was cruel, but then you learn in the flashbacks he was kind of like a moron, just like kind of like a loser mall cop. No one took him seriously. And with the apocalypse or the fall happening, it's like, all right, this is my chance, this is my opportunity to like assert the authority and get the respect I deserve. And obviously, I don't agree with any of his actions, like him gunning down innocent people for no reason. It's like, all right, that's a bit too much for me, dog. But I like when he kills the kid in the crossfire and you see he picks up like the bloody teddy bear. That's a callback to his cutscene in Twisted Metal Black. You got the cover right there. I wish I had that. But I thought that was a really cool touch. And there, like, he also had some pretty comedic moments as well. There's like a recurring bit where he's like, "I know what a sister is." Like, people keep trying to describe like what a brother and sister relationship is to him, which I thought was pretty funny.
Was that
The,
ever paid off? Because it was brought up twice.
it
It
was
was
brought up
brought up like
twice.
I
three
mean,
times in total. And here's what's funny is during my breakdown video that I did before the show came out, I said, well, maybe Loud is her lover. Maybe that the fact that I said that before the show came out, and then that's the running joke from that moment onward. I was just the whole time, my dad's like, you literally said that, and now like I'm like, great, someone's gonna think I leaked the episode or something.
No, I mean,
yeah,
it's a great minds think alike kind of thing, right? But I was just like, did I miss like a
I
some
think
sort of payoff?
I think the payoff was like when it comes up again, and it's the two other officers that are brother and
Okay.
sisters. Like he doesn't really care about anyone. He doesn't really see anyone else as people. So it's just like these people who seem to be pretty close to him. He doesn't realize that they're not brother and sister. Like yeah.
Yeah, I do like the touch and how Quiet kind of calls it out too. Like you're just basically everyone is kind of doing the thing for him. It's all about power, and but we understand why he has other people do it for him. He doesn't want the blood on his hands after shooting the little girl. So I can understand that, and even so, to kind of jump ahead with his quote unquote demise, we'll kind of give our thoughts a little bit later on that. But when he does have a gun, and she's like, "You're just a man with a gun," like that's all you are, though. You're not really in charge. So like she just keeps taking him down another notch too. So I like the cat and mouse between those two, so to speak. Daly, did you have any more on Stone? Because I also want to talk a little bit about Shepard as well. We'll kind of just talk about the cops in general, Shepard, and then if you guys want to include Mike and Stu in this group as well.
Yeah, we can include Mike and Stu, and we can also include the Roberts siblings, Jamie and Carl
Sure.
Roberts, who were I didn't expect to see them in the show, to be honest. So when they popped up, I was like, oh, those are the original drivers of Outlaw in Twisted Metal 1, 2, and Head On. So I thought that was a really cool touch. Very different characters, interpretations from what they are in the game. But I enjoyed seeing them. Like I like how everyone calls Carl like a moron. He's like just like some bumbling buffoon. But he kind of comes off as endearing, even though he's kind of a dick. I don't know. It's kind of like a weird balance, but like I kind of like seeing him. And Agent Shepard, creepy. One of the creepiest characters in the show. Like, oh my god!
It's one of
Anytime
my
he was on
favorites,
screen,
actually. I like him.
He's got
Yeah.
a face just made to creep you out.
oh yeah, like anytime he was on screen, like he just made my skin crawl. But it was a great performance, and like the way he went out was pretty satisfying, especially for Quiet. So, and I didn't expect Agent Shepard, who like I think he's only appeared in Twisted Metal Head On, which was the PSP game. So them including him in the show was really cool. And of course, I got to give a shout out to Mike and Stu. These another surprise for me. I never thought I would care about two characters from Twisted Metal 2 as much as I did in the show. I thought Mike Mitchell as Stu was fantastic. He's kind of like, in a way, he's kind of like the heart and soul of the show because he's like a very endearing character. He doesn't really want to hurt anybody. He's just like, he's not strong enough to say no. So he kind of just goes along with the ride with everyone. And with Taj Evans as Taj Vaughn's, excuse me, Taj Vaughn's as Mike, like you're kind of supposed to hate Mike because he's like kind of a bad friend sometimes, but I kind of understand his actions because he's just trying to survive in this world, right? This world is shitty, like it's like kill or be killed. So he's just trying. I feel like Mike found the perfect opportunity to work with Stone. It's like, all right, here's like a safety guard for like a few months. I can live here, work my way up. And he's trying to get Stu like, yo, step up too. I want to help you as well. You're my bro. Like we're in this together. But unfortunately, Stu kind of lets go of Jean and Quiet, so he's kind of forced to pull the gun on Stu. But they reconcile in the end, and of course, that post-credit scene is we'll talk about that later. But Mike and Stu were really, really well done and great characters in this season.
I don't know about the you said Jamie and Carl, is that their names?
Yeah,
Yes.
Jamie and Carl Roberts.
Jamie and Carl. Okay. So I'm not familiar with those two at all. So they were kind of fine as characters. They definitely added to the world, and the whole Radical, what you were saying about Carl in particular, that's kind of the thing. Not a lot of them are kind of one note. Like there's a little bit of dimension. There's just a little bit of added maybe sympathy or at least an understanding where they're coming from at the very least, right? They're not just like necessarily bad to be bad sake necessarily. Some of them are, but I think the ones that they pay a little bit more attention to are kind of given things to do. Shepard really stands out for me, not just like his creepiness, but it's like the way he speaks as well, like his cadence, the way he talks. I love that little thing he does with Mike when he's like, "Oh yeah, I really liked when you tased, taste." I forget what he calls her. Like,
A
does he call her
twat.
twat? Okay, yeah. Then Mike does the like, "Ah," I like that little interaction, and there's that one interrogation part with Quiet and John, and like Stone says like some joke, and like the only person that laughs is Shepard, and it's like a force like ha ha, or whatever it was. Like I thought that was really funny, but I did reach out to Jared Benkins to ask him about like his voice for Shepard, like where did that come from? And I'm paraphrasing. He says something like, he grew up like in a single home, and like, and he has a friend that did as well, and like they were fans of like action movies growing up, and he cited like Arnold, and he thinks that like Shepard, he just like loved these type of action movies and sees himself as like that type of guy. And so when he's in the room and Stone isn't around, he's like the head man in charge, right? And so I kind of like that, how we see that he maybe also kind of, maybe not idolizes, but I think he respects Stone. So much so that he didn't even think like that one story Stone told him, where he told Mike about like how he, basically kicked ass and took names or whatever, right? Like I kind of forget the story, but like I guess Stone told him how he took like an entire group of people down by him single-handedly, or whatever that story was. Like even Shepard just believed it. Like he didn't even second guess it. It's like, oh man, this guy's a badass, and I'm just gonna believe whatever he says. So he's very much that type of guy. And I just love the scene where Quiet walks into the room, and he's like, masturbating, because like Jared just commits to that scene. Like he's really going at it. It's one of my favorite moments, because it's so hilarious. It kind of reminds me of I'm forgetting the character's name, but from Orange is the New Black, the warden, because he used to like masturbate in his office too, I believe. If no one watched that, no, okay,
Never
I
seen it.
I couldn't get into
it's
that
a great
show
show.
because within like what was the first episode, the second episode, they had the bloody tampon sandwich thing
Oh
scene or
yeah,
whatever.
it's
Like
it's yeah,
I
I
was
love
like,
the
ah,
show.
okay, I'm
Yeah.
good. But
Piquing my interest.
yeah, no, like so like with me with Stone, again, I know Agent Stone because there's been multiple characters named Agent Stone. The actual original driver of Crimson Phoenix was named Agent Stone, but again, they renamed him kind of in Head On, like Radek mentioned, to Agent Shepard. Now Shepard is nothing like the Shepard that we have in Head On. They are polar freaking opposites. One guy took down Calypso and arrested him. The other guy jerked off to anime magazine and got his skull crushing while screaming, "Oh!" like that. So like
That's pretty
there's
funny. You gotta admit, like his
yeah, no,
scream.
the facial expression and his scream before he gets hit was hilarious. But back to Stone. Yeah, in Black, we have a man who made a mistake. He made a mistake, and he's not blaming anyone else. He's taking accountability, and he's trying to correct it by trying to go to the past. The only person he blames is himself. Where this Stone blames everyone but him. He blames everyone for his mistake except for him. Now, one thing I noticed, and this might be a reference, I could be wrong. Whenever after he kills the quote unquote terrorists, he and notices the child and everything, he says, "You broke the law." And all that reminded me of was the old Judge Dredd movie where he's like, "Law, I am the law." Like that reminded me of that. But again, polar opposite of the, kind of sympathetic outlaw that we knew in Twisted Metal Black, where he made a mistake and he's trying to make up for it when he accidentally killed a mother and her child, where this one, it's haunting him, but not in the same way. It's not haunting him where he wants to correct the mistake. It's haunting him like, you will never be forgiven for what you did, even up until the point of his demise at the end of the season when he takes his own life. Supposedly, again, we never saw the body. We heard the gunshot. We don't know if he's dead.
Right.
I have theories on what they're going to do for season 2 when that happens. So
Yeah, I told my coworker, because he said the same thing. He's like, "Oh yeah, just Stone shot himself." I go, "Well, we heard a gunshot, but they cut away. So TV rules is no body, no death."
Yeah.
So
He's coming
yeah,
back.
yeah. So yeah, we'll see. Let's see. I kind of gave my thoughts on Mike and Stu. Well, actually, not necessarily Mike and Stu. I guess they are friends, but I wonder if their dynamic is they're only friends because they previously worked together. Because I do question Mike's loyalty, like to give up Stu so easily.
They do mention Mike mentions that they were friends since second grade.
That's right. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I do remember something like that. Man, just yeah. I guess I'm trying to apologize for Mike there because I've hung out with Taj Mons. Shout out to Taj. So
Oh, he was fantastic.
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely
yeah, he really
fantastic.
was. I was I didn't know what to expect from him, but just Mike and Stewart so couldn't be so any more different, right? And just the fact that like the little bit I knew of them from the games, I watched the end credit thing on YouTube. It was like, oh, these guys are like stoners, so they're probably going to be comedic relief. Well, kind of. Stu was a little bit more of it, and that is definitely one character I kept on sympathizing for throughout. And I feel the point where Stu turns good or breaks good, if you want to phrase it that way. I feel that might be a nod to the games about like how they just wanted to fly, and so like we're at this DMV and the door opens and I don't know, like I know like nobody's going out that window, but it makes me think of it made me think about Stu and Mike were thrown out and then they just dropped, this really right? Is that what happened? They fell somewhere
Yeah,
and
their
just
wish was to like we want the ability to fly anywhere, and Calypso grants it. So they immediately, without thinking, just jump off the building, thinking
hmm,
like they're gonna fly with wings. And Calypso's like, like I got you two first class tickets to anywhere you wanted to go.
Good thing these
And
are refundable.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So that Calypso man, it's always that monkey's paw. Like, gotta curl the finger.
Which we'll,
right,
we'll
right.
talk about with Raven. I'm genuinely curious if anyone picked up on that.
Tyler, did you have any other thoughts on any of the other law enforcement?
Oh yeah, I mean, so Stone, Thomas Hayden Church, the
Y-
character,
Youngstone too. The
uh,
actor. I don't have his name in front of me, but he was also very good.
yeah. I mean, like really nailed it. Like it felt like a younger version of that character. The character sucks. That guy sucks so bad. I love that. He is a cop, but he's a literal mall cop. He's a cop that's been assigned to the mall, the perfect position to just always be confused with someone that literally has no power, that can only tell you to please leave. And uh, yeah, like his backstory, I wasn't expecting at all. I was, you hear that story about how he saved an entire town. He killed all the terrorists. He cleaned up the town. And they obviously like that's not what it's going to be. But I was just figuring, oh, he'll probably just be rent a cop, mall cop who just sees the opportunity to have some real power. And the way they kind of did it, showing him being disrespected by teenagers at the mall, going home, and then having his own neighbors like coming and robbing him, um, was just great. And he really nails the performance of like someone who is clearly so like uh so weak and insecure on the inside, and the only thing he knows how to do is to just wave a dick and try and force everyone to do what he says because he has a gun. um yeah, so I really enjoyed it. He's definitely gonna be back. If you don't see that body, they're dead. Like it's I assume he'll be one of the tournament contestants.
Did anybody catch his father's rank? Right, that's who he looked at. Right, the picture where he grabbed the pistol. I'm assuming he takes the pistol
I
out of that.
think it was a lieutenant, if I was correct. I could be
Okay.
wrong.
I was wondering if he was like like Agent Stone, and then he decides to take his dad's rank instead of Officer Stone from the mall or something. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
kind of
it seemed like it was definitely obviously, yeah, a higher position. Yeah.
so
And then
maybe there's a little bit more backstory we don't know about, like daddy issues, right? Like he never lived up to his dad, who was an actual like this guy had a plaque of sorts, and here he is with like a porno and like like a mall badge that he patrols, so patrols with. So yeah, very interesting character for sure.
yeah. And then yeah, Mike and Stu. Yeah, Stu is absolutely kind of the heart and like the thing that I was more interested, as good as Anthony Mackie and Stephanie Beatriz are. Like I was like, what is happening with Stu? Where's he going? The Adventures of Stu and Sweet Tooth, the S brothers. Uh,
I
um,
felt bad for him when and they set this up early on, the whole trunk thing too. They showed us
mhm.
twice, or maybe once, and then we find out later that the trunk, they kind of like reverse engineered and showed us like the trunk had been a problem for decades.
Mhm.
But yeah, when we've seen that in the trailer, but everything is cut so differently, you don't know what's actually going on. But when that happens, I'm like, why? He was so close. He was so close to escape. He was right there. Yeah, I felt really bad for him.
Yeah, but I mean, it sets him up to go and uh, run off with his new gang. Uh, but yeah, they
Instant Clown Posse, that one.
yeah.
Yes, I like that more than the clowns. But I think that might be copyrighted, so I don't think they could use that.
Oh, I'm sure it's probably pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Those rights. Uh, but yeah, they were great, and I love the character dynamic of they're treating Stu as like he's the coward. He's the one that needs to man up and like kill when he needs to kill. Like whatever. But he's also the one that like he's kind of sticking to his beliefs. He doesn't want to just kill some random like scavengers who are being set up, with a honeypot truck. Like he recognizes that, and it's not something he wants to do. And he's not often faced with like someone who is deserving of that punishment, the execution or whatever. Where with Mike, doesn't seem to have a whole lot of a problem with it, and which like is in a way like yeah, he'll pull the trigger, he'll do what needs to be done, taking his orders, but he's also easily just falls in line, does what he's told to do to survive.
Yeah.
And yeah, and they man, I'm very excited to see how they continue on in the next season.
Same. I do love the differences of those two. They are both followers in their own way. You mentioned, Mike, he does get in line and he does it to survive. Stu doesn't know how to survive, but he's definitely a follower. But I do love that little touch of, sticking to his guns about his beliefs. Like, no, like I feel bad because they don't deserve it. And like like that one part where they capture Quiet and John, and Stu's like zip tying John. Is like, "Huh, let me know if that's too tight." Like you don't have to be nice, dude. Like you're arresting yeah, arresting these folks, and you're being nice and saying like, "Oh, don't worry, you'll get it back." All these things. So I love that little touch. It makes his character a little more three-dimensional. All those little lines there. Anything else about those guys before we move on? We'll go to Sweet Tooth, Jay Lee.
I will say, like, my favorite line in the entire show is during episode 10, and it's when Sweet Tooth dives on Stone's car, and Stone's like, "What the fuck?" Like that. Like I listened, and I was like, that is me every time I die in like a battle royale game, of me just going, "What the fuck?" Like, I don't know why. Just how he did it. It was such a memeable line, to the point that it made that a soundboard noise in my Discord. Like, it was just so funny the way he performed that. But Mike and Stu, again, I guess the best comparison of them in Twisted Metal 2 would be Bill and Ted. Kind of. That's the way I would best describe them in Twisted Metal 2, is like Bill and Ted. In this one, yeah, I think that like Stu has his moral compass. Like, he's got his moral compass. He's not willing to break it. He questions things. Where Mike, again, like you said, he's a follower. Like, he just wants to survive, and he'll do whatever it takes. He's got that like, hey, I was told to do this. I'm gonna do this because this means food, sleep, and showers. So yeah, I guess that's all I'm gonna say about that. Go on.
All right. I think we can move to Sweet Tooth. I think that'd be a good transition. Do you guys want to start with that stinger real quick?
Oh
That
yeah,
we
like
can we can move away from Mike and Stu. I had to go back before the recording as well, because I was like, let me just double check his eye real quick, because if he's got both eyes, that's a dream sequence or something. But no, his eye is still ruined. But the last time we saw that mask, it was on the ground, so we're assuming he picks it up at some point. But that singer really gave me like, I know what you did last summer vibes for sure.
His head also held up to the fire very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like no
Yes.
scarring at all. It's like, oh wow,
Yeah,
sweet
was
tooth.
waiting for that, but I like the reasoning, just pour some gasoline and just lights up. But
I was kind of expecting the like mask or whatever to kind of like fuse, like melt to him or something.
Right.
I think, well, I believe it's made of wood, but I don't know, like in show, like what is it actually supposed to be? Do you guys have any idea? Is there any lore behind the mask and what it's made of?
Well,
So in
in
20, oh sorry,
go ahead. You want to
Jelly,
go
Jelly,
first?
please, Jelly,
Okay.
go.
So in 2001, it was a rubber mask. In 2001, it was a rubber mask that basically he just put on, and they even mentioned how he like lost it during his execution. It took him, less than a minute to kill 5 police officers and get my mask back on. Then in 2005, it seems like because they were going for the cartoony thing, the the mask was his face. It was like, think of the mask, the Jim Carrey movie. The mask is his face in a way. And then in 2012, it's a wooden mask where what it is that he was the voice in the back of Marcus Kane's mind telling him to carve him, to kill everyone, and that as soon as he forced him to carve it and put it on, he killed Marcus Kane. Now, the thing with this Marcus or Needles or whatever is that he's never referred to in the show as Needles Kane. It's alluded to since that's what he used for his first kill, but it's never, said Needles Kane. He's always referred to as Sweet Tooth, which is always been the name of his vehicle, but that's what he's most iconically known as. I like the fact
It was a news clipping, right? It's a news clipping that said like needles in quotation marks.
okay, yeah,
Kane,
that's the
right?
one
That's how.
time that they refer to it because that's what he again killed his co-star with, which we'll get into.
Yeah,
But
he
yeah,
looked like young Steve from Blue's Clues with that green shirt
Yeah,
and
he
that
did.
haircut.
Oh my God.
I wonder if that's what they're going with. I'm gonna have to find out.
but I think that it was referred to that the mask was wood from when the first fight scene happened between Anthony Mackie's John Doe and Sweet Tooth. When he punches him, he hits him right in the nose, and you see him go like that. The only way I could see that happening is if that mask is made of wood, because hitting a rubber mask, you're still hitting someone's face. I don't think that it would have the same. And plus, like he kind of like bounced off of it. I think that it's supposed to be like the wood mask, the way that it looks overall. During that final part, it did when you see Harold laying next to the mask. It did look like it was supposed to be a plastic mask, but I still think that I think it was a wood mask. That's my theory.
Yeah, I agree. I think it has to be a wooden mask for sure.
Remind me David's last name, the creator of Twisted Metal.
David Jaffe.
Jaffe. Okay. He was really excited that they included Harold. Can you
Yeah.
guys speak about Harold? This is a blind spot for me.
Although I'll let
It's-
Radek go because he knows it just as much as I do.
Yeah, so Harold the wacky lunch sack was so in the original Twisted Metal in 1995, David Jaffe had the idea like he wanted to create live action endings for these characters. So he filmed it, and apparently I think according to the extra Twisted edition for Head On, there's like a documentary about the history. He describes it, and then everyone in the development team watched those cutscenes, and they're like, "This is terrible. We cannot ship the game with these live action cutscenes. It will hurt sales." So he's like, "All right," but then eventually, once Extra Twisted came out, all those cutscenes, all those lost endings in quotes, finally got re-uploaded. They're on YouTube. Watch them; they're hilarious. And in Sweet Tooth's ending, his wish for the first Twisted Metal is just to find Harold, the wacky lunch sack, who he calls his best friend. I think he's been missing for 5 years or so. Seeing Harold in the show, I was like, what the hell? Like, never would I have thought in a million years of all the things they could reference for Sweet Tooth. Like his father being Charlie Kane as a Yellow Jacket. It's a small line in episode 7 with his stepfather mentioning, "Oh, your dad used to be a cab driver before he got arrested." I think I'm like paraphrasing. So we got that reference. I'm like, all right, that's to be expected. This kind of the Blue's Clues kind of sweater he wears in episode 7. It's like, okay, that kind of looks like Marcus Kane in Twisted Metal Black. This Twisted Metal 3 suit and the like when he suits up with the Sweet Tooth drip giving his performance. That's from Twisted Metal 3 and PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale, underrated game. But Harold the wacky lunch sack, I was like, wow, you guys are referencing like probably one of the most obscure Sweet Tooth facts ever. And it was mentioned in the game as well. Like in the lost ending, they don't actually call it Harold, but in the text ending in the actual final game, it says like, "Oh, Harold, the wacky lunch sack, has been reunited with Sweet Tooth." So the fact that they mentioned Harold, I'm like, oh my god! And I love it so much that it became like a recurring gag. And every time I saw Harold, it became funnier and funnier. It's like Harold,
You're
watch
writing
everyone.
bitch.
Yeah, you're writing bitch, and Harold, watch everyone when I'm gone. It's just Harold just on the bench, and it's like, I don't know. They made a paper bag kind of endearing, so that's incredible.
Harold definitely had a drink, right? I mean, there was like an empty like soda bottle or something next to it at one point.
Oh yeah, you're
During
right.
his performance, what's funny is the glass was full, and after the performance, when they're clapping and the lights are going on and off, you see that the glass is actually empty. So, yeah, either that was what Sweet Tooth seeing that his buddy drank his drink, or someone did. Maybe Quiet snuck over and was like, okay, I need another drink for this
Nope,
shit.
definitely Harold. But speaking of, I love John reaching for that the drink with his tongue, to reach the straw when he got arrested. That was pretty funny too.
Take your hands and
Yeah,
you
what?
still have this. You can still
Oh
grab
yeah,
it
that's
and bring
true.
it to
That's true.
you.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
Yeah,
wouldn't be as funny though. Yeah, naive.
true.
Let's see. We were just Sweet to Tyler, your thoughts on his performance. Now, that performance that he gives in episode 2 is that like when you get a hotel room, you turn on the TV and you
Yeah.
got like okay, that's what all that is that he's performing.
I assume it's whatever casino he's at. It's like here's the all the amenities that we have offered to you. Yeah,
The
and it
one where
seems
he's
and it seems like he knows it's bad.
right. Yeah, yeah. I guess he just wanted somebody to be honest. I mean,
Yeah,
as John talked about, like, oh, I'm not a liar in the previous meeting, or actually, I guess it was a previous scene for them. But I do like the one point where he's like wearing a wig, and I was thinking, oh, it kind of reminded me of like Psycho a little bit. I think some of these references were pulled from Psycho. Just the killing of his parents. Instead of mother, you got mother and father at least stepdad, so that's kind of where I was thinking. Tyler, what do you think about his backstory?
Oh, yeah, I love the backstory. It reminded me a lot of was it Nope? The yeah, the opening to
Jordan
that.
Peele. Yeah.
Jordan Peele, yeah.
Yeah. Um and that's also I think the only episode where we get a modification to the title card. The thumbs up and it's like an 80s sitcom Twisted Metal comes up. I really liked that. um yeah, I thought it was great. That's another moment where they don't really shy away from the violence. He kills his co-star, who we find out was a golden retriever with some sewing or crochet needles.
That was pretty fucked up, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I think it was almost like oh, you guys really like Sweet Tooth, right? I mean, we're gonna show you how bad he is. This guy killed a dog.
Hey, you go that far, you get another half star from me.
Yeah, just
But
just as long as it's not John Wick's dog, right?
Yeah,
That'd be
exactly.
a good
I still
fight.
haven't watched those movies because of that. But
it,
the fact that it was a golden retriever, kind of taking a shot at the Airbud movies of the '90s and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's why they used a golden retriever to kill the dog.
Maybe in Full House, where Comet is a golden retriever.
oh yeah. Uh, yeah, like Sweet Tooth as a whole, Samoa Joe was just so good. Like his physical comedy, like is just like the wrestling pays off, in ways you don't normally like expect. Like his ability to do physical comedy is just like it really shines. And I would love to see when we can some of the behind the scenes stuff, like when he has dialogue in those scenes. I would love to see like what's actually going on in there. Hopefully I'd like to hear if he's reading them out, what his performance is like, if there is any.
Yeah, as I understand it from some of the interviews that have been out, Samoa Joe he recites those lines, and he basically kind of studied like Will Arnett's like cadences and stuff like that. I don't know how much um on screen maybe, or like over the screen, or because I'm assuming Will Arnett was not on set for a lot of that, if at all. I'm not seeing him in many of these pictures that are being shared by other people. So I believe it's all added later on, but he Joe talks about how he watched like all these different things with Will Arnett in it, and basically performs it as how he hears Will Arnett perform it, and then they just go in and kind of match that up or something. But I would be curious to see the behind the scenes of him using his own voice as Sweet Tooth, right? For those moments. So yeah, I'd be really interested. Um, I think with Sweet Tooth, when he's funny, it's fine. He's a clown, and we get it. It's Will Arnett, so it's funny. But when he's menacing, holy shit, I don't hear Will Arnett's voice. I kind of joked about like, all I hear is Lego Batman, but like, holy shit, it gets down to like a certain octave, and it's so deep, and it's really scary, and it's growling. So I really do like all that, and I love how Quiet and John are the catalyst for him to leave his casino finally, and go out and recruit. Because I think I missed that little tidbit of like, no, 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 that's not what we meant. And again, that's another kind of one of those things that made me think of Cobra Kai immediately. Again, the Cobra Kai fans will get this reference, but Amanda in season 5, a couple times, tries to tell somebody, say, "Hey, help me out." She's knocks some sense into them, kind of thing, and then that person will try to help, but does the thing that she didn't want them to do in her comments, like, that's not what I meant. And we got that with Quiet as well. They try to give Sweet Tooth some advice or whatever. He misconstrues and is like, yes, I should take this show on the road. And she's like, that's not what I meant. So and episode 2 was also written by Michael Jonathan Smith. So again, I'm just seeing some of the similarities. It may not be intentional, but it's hard for me to not see that when I've been covering Cobra Kai for 5 seasons. So I think that's kind of my thoughts on Sweet Tooth. If you guys want to finish up, I kind of lost track. Tyler, did you still have some more to add to Sweet Tooth?
Oh, I mean, yeah, the only thing that kind of stood out to me was it didn't seem like it was like his direction wasn't just you're a pure like agent of chaos. Like if you're willing to sit down and watch his show, like he'll allow you to do that, and he'll take your feedback. Stu, like after the kind of their first encounter, I wasn't feeling like, oh, he's, is he going to kill him in this scene? Like, is this when he's going to turn? Sweet Tooth was surprisingly genuine. Like, I didn't get a whole lot of like, I'm going to just at the drop of a hat, just slaughter everyone that's around me. He seems to have a driving force, of violence.
There's definitely got some funny moments for sure. Like I like the part where I kind of forgot how it plays out, but Stu says like, there's all these other people here that's happy to help you or whatever. And he's like, I don't have enough room for you guys. Like whatever
Yeah.
that comment was. I thought that was actually
You
pretty
should
funny.
Maybe you should
carpool.
carpool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, some funny moments for sure. And I didn't think very much of it was like over the top. I think their first encounter, John and Sweet Tooth, that's probably, I feel like, the silliest in terms of like one of these things don't go together, right? Like I feel aside from that scene, everything else is kind of feels pretty balanced in his menace and his humor. This one was like the whole Cisco thing. That's the one that feels the most foreign to this character for the rest of the season.
I was expecting it like the Cisco thing to be like more of a thing. Like he literally like views him as the silver-haired god or something, that he worships.
Is a
worships.
shrine.
Like,
He
yeah,
goes a
exactly.
lot. I mean, I didn't even know Cisco's real name was Mark.
I like how they dropped that right before transition. Did you know his name was Mark? Like, but I guess like the three things that I could refer to about Sweet Tooth. There was three things I loved. First, the scene when he arrives at the dam and he has that interaction with the guard. That actually, like that was like I think a reference to the Joker from The Dark Knight, when he goes and at the beginning of the movie he robs the bank and sticks the grenade in the guy's mouth, and then
Right.
pulls the pin as he drives away. That's, I think, kind of a reference to that. I like the laugh that he did. It's so, almost kind of sound robotic in a way as he's driving away towards the dam. But then there were two moments I lost my mind and I jumped up screaming. And my girlfriend, who just walked in the room and left food for me, thank you, sweetheart, actually saw me do this. Was as soon as you hear the laughing napalm missiles come flying in, and I was just like, yes, yes, oh my God. And then you hear him say, light it up. And then you hear, it's time to play. And like, I was just like, oh my God, this is what I've been waiting for the entire show, was this moment of it becoming. And I love the way that they seen that of the law, outlaw, all, the different outlaws, even though they were driving Shadow against, you've got Twister, you've got, I guess you could say it's a form of dark side, even though it's not dark side.
I would say Juggernaut.
Juggernaut, yeah.
Yeah.
With Amber and Tinker driving that, while you've got Twister and everyone else. It was just such. I love the way that it was filmed of them coming at each other, especially you see all the vehicles that you recognize going. And one thing I left out about the Anthony Mackie situation, the guy who the vulture that Quiet deals with, I think his name was what was the
I think he's
vulture?
also
Mark, another
Yeah.
Mark.
Yeah.
He kind of looks like Captain Spears from the original Twisted Metal in a way. Like if you've ever seen a shot of Captain Spears with the like football shoulder pad, like things, he kind of looks like him. But as soon as I saw that car, I was like, oh my God, they're actually going to go with a real roadkill. Like I in the license plate, everything fell together. But yeah, Sweet Tooth, I was worried whenever I heard, the thong song. But then as soon as that scene was over with and done with, I was like, okay, how are you going to pull me back into liking this character? Because you just did a lot of damage. That's a lot of damage. And then they do the Twisted Metal 3 suit, and they do him doing the guide thing, and you see Harold, and then you get into him on the road being menacing and murdering people like Sweet Tooth would, going through the entire dam like he did the hospital in Twisted Metal 2012. It was really great. I was loving it from beginning to end. Again, just the worst scene you could have shown as a teaser to make people excited about Twisted Metal is him holding another man's face against the slot machine. I mean, there's a lot of cringy thumbnails out there. Well, he sings about show me that thong.
I mean, when you're at the Game Awards, what are you going to sell to gamers more than the thong song? That's what they're all looking for.
I wonder if that's just kind of like, this is something that we can give away that's not going to give away much at all. Like in terms of, if you think about the other scenes, a little bit more characters are involved, right? So you probably don't want to give away that stuff, or even small scenes with smaller characters that are just kills, so you probably want to hold that stuff closer to chest and not reveal too much. Just to kind of reference the trailer real quick, I did find it interesting that a lot of the footage that we saw, whether it was the trailer or some first sneak peeks and footages, a lot of it came from the first two episodes. And so like the combat, vehicular combat at the very end, I had a feeling that was kind of towards the end. And so that's a little spoilery, because now you're like waiting for that moment, right? Like Tyler, you and I, we kind of talked about it and all the different vehicles that we were able to kind of see from the aerial shot. We knew that was coming at some point. So when I didn't see it by episode 9, I go, it's got to be in episode 10. Well, we see it towards the end of episode 9.
So yeah, they took
yeah.
the worst inspiration from the new Mortal Kombat movie and saving the tournament for the second part.
Right. Yeah. We talked about that. See, and to kind of talk about like, were they true to the game? Like they got bits and pieces of every game. They took all the game cartridges and CDs, put it in a blender and hit mixed. Right. That's kind of what we got, and all the best parts, is this. And so, yeah, I'm glad that they were able to flesh out the characters. A surprise character that I really like, that was short-lived, no pun intended, was Granny Dread. Oh, she was used, and the advice that she gives Mandy,
Miranda.
Miranda.
Miranda. Okay, and there's also an Amanda, right? Is that supposed to be the same
Yeah,
character?
that's
or
Miranda's sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and Amber is not related. Amber is a
Flower power.
flower power. Oh boy, guys, yeah, this is gonna be tough. But
The fact that we can hold this knowledge in our heads for however many years and know this right off the bat without even thinking about it, me and him are in sync right now.
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's
It's
awesome.
a
I mean,
gift, but also a curse. It's like one of those
Yes.
things.
yeah. So I love that and the whole run that John has to make, and then like I knew the flower was gonna be something, but it's just like what is it? But yeah, I like everything about Granny from her introduction when John's like, Granny, your tubes lead to nowhere, like all of that. I just thought it was really good writing, and the score behind the ceremony where they sent her off. Like I thought that was a really really good score, whatever that track is called. You can stream it on Spotify right now. So unless you're paying for it, it's kind of I think it's only on shuffle. And I didn't get a chance to catch the title of it, but I can't wait for it to stream on something else where I can see the titles as I like listen along
If you
daily.
don't mind, you guys heard me rip into the whole fact that they were including Twisted Metal 3 and 4 characters in that Twitter space.
Oh right,
You
yeah,
get you guys heard me like rip into that. The fact that I felt emotion for Granny Dread when she's dead and getting
she's so
pushed,
good.
right? I was like, oh fuck, don't make me have emotions for this character, please don't.
Incredible.
Why?
Incredible.
And again, you watch Cobra Kai, like you can sit there and say a lot of these characters from the original movies are silly as hell. But what
Yeah.
Cobra Kai did well with those characters was flesh them out, give us some more dialogue to reference those old movies and make the viewing of those movies a little bit better. They took characters that you guys probably never would have thought would have been on this show and just give them a few lines here and there to say some things, and you're like, holy shit, I love this character all of a sudden for some reason. But I'm assuming Granny Dread and Miranda are not related in the game.
No,
Yeah,
no,
so that's kind of
they are
cool.
not.
Yeah, so it's not like, oh, let's just make them related, and that's what I hate about like some of these previous game adaptations. They make things too convenient. It's like, oh, you guys gave like no thought to that. And again, just referencing Cobra Kai, but that writers' room, I often hear from the multiple writers, they always say that the best idea wins. There's no egos. It's not like, oh, because I'm showrunner, I'm ultimately gonna, make the choice. It's like whoever has the best idea, that's what they're gonna go with. So they're sitting there kicking around ideas, and at some point, I'm sure, let's make Granny related to somebody. But also, oh my God, the transforming semis, whatever the fuck that stunt was, that's got to be like the MVP stunt of of season one. That was pretty amazing. The way they captured Evelyn into the semi
Hmm.
vehicle. Yeah.
Yeah, boxing him in and then lowering the back as a ramp.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then didn't they have something also that pushed them in or something, or no, they had
it
to
was
get
just
rammed
the
in.
it was just the
Yeah,
one in the front. It's kind of slowed down and forced them like back
Right.
in.
and then the inside becomes like their living quarter, right? So
Right.
they're just like
Like
Yeah.
each
they're just
trailer is a
mobile.
living quarter.
They're
Yeah,
just mobile the entire time.
That's
That's
a really
wild,
cool concept. I was kind of
Yeah.
shocked. I was like, oh, that's actually very clever. Like them
right?
using the Juggernaut vehicles from 2012. It's like, no, this is going to be our hideout. Like we always have to be on the move because like the world sucks. So we can't stay in one location. I thought it was like very well done.
Yeah, I just that's probably one of my favorite scenes, if not episode, because I also love the little bit of Miranda where Granny does say like, "Hey, we'll give you one of those bloody missiles," or right? Is that what it's called?
Blood missiles.
Blood missiles. And forget the discussion, but after Miranda finds out that they're gonna go see the pharmacist, she gets really mad. It's like, fine, I'm gonna go weld something on your Subaru or whatever the line was. I just thought that was so funny. She was really up in her feels at that moment.
Yeah, I thought
Um,
Granny Dread was because Twisted Metal 3 and 4 are like the games in the franchise I'm least familiar with. I played them on my PlayStation Vita a couple times here and there, but yeah, like Jay Lee said, the way they make you care about Granny Dread, the way they make you care about Amber Rose, it's like this is like incredible writing. Like never would I thought in a million years like Granny Dread like if you were to make a ranking of like top Twisted Metal characters, she'd be like in the bottom tier or like second to last bottom tier. So after the show, she's like B or A tier. Like I thought like she only had one episode, but she really I think I have the actress
Meaningful.
on.
Yeah,
IMDb right here.
it was a very
Sorry.
meaningful episode. Yeah, no, that's fine. I thought she was great, and one of you guys did a video about her and her look and how the glasses was a style from one of the other games. I forgot which one was that.
I
Was
think that
that?
was
Probably
Jaylee.
him. Oh, I
Oh,
Really?
I never mentioned Granny Dread in any of my videos yet.
I don't think I have either.
so none of
Yeah.
you guys mentioned the glasses?
I
Maybe that
haven't
was
even
somebody
gone to that
else.
yet because
Okay.
I'm still stuck behind. I'm still backlogged on some YouTube shorts. I just got my final YouTube shorts out there, and now I've got a few reactions to the episodes because I recorded a few of the episodes that we watched in my Discord, and you get to see me freak the literally jump out of my seat almost. So, but yeah, no, I haven't talked about Granny Dread at all at any length.
So
Yeah,
Peg
I
O'Keefe,
just
sorry. Peg O'Keefe
Peg
is the
O'Keefe.
actress who plays
I'm gonna
Granny
have
Dread.
gonna have to see
Fantastic.
what else she's done. I love that entire group of people. I don't know if they have a town that was mentioned or whatever. What was the name of that episode?
Episode 4,
Was that four? That was
that
that
was
early?
episode 4.
Who's there?
Oh,
WHCDARE.
yeah, who's there?
Who's
Okay.
there?
Yeah, who's
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And the town itself is the convoy. The convoy
Right. Convoy.
is the
Yeah,
the
They
entire
refer to it
like
as yeah.
ridge.
They
yeah, because
refer to it as the convoy.
they're saying they don't want any part of this conflict, so they're heading north or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. We'll include Amber in this discussion as well, but like I thought Amber was really cool, little poison ivy,
Hmm.
of the show. Yeah, she was really a little creepy at first because you don't know exactly what to expect, and but she's so knowledgeable in all these in the plants and whatnot. Wonder if she's vegan. But anyway, bad joke.
I would
Oh,
assume
I'm a dad.
so.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong likelihood for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I really like that character and the stuff with Miranda. I thought that was really sweet. Just that setup with Granny, like her passing away. It's like, time, like time. We don't have time. Fucking, right your wrongs and mend your relationships. I just love that message, and it circles back around at the end there. They are reunited again, and they're the ones that end up finding John in episode 9, I believe it was. So yeah, really good there. Is that also the one where we see Pizza Boy and Bloody Mary, right? Or is that
That's
unrelated?
episode
Seven.
It's
7.
earlier.
7.
Okay. So anything with the convoy group before we move on to the other milkmen?
Shout out to Tinker, original character
Yes.
in the
Oh yeah.
show,
Yeah.
but like she only had like a few moments, but her last moment when she saves Amber's life, I thought was a pretty sweet. Like I hope we get to see her again. Fingers
Yeah.
crossed. But I thought
I
Tinker
have a
was really well
theory.
done.
I
Oh,
have a theory. So the fact that you saw the clip where Sweet Tooth fires off the napalm missiles and it hits the driver's side of the truck, where again Amber was driving the truck, Tinker was riding passenger. The
Right.
fact that Tinker died but Amber lived, is there any chance that Carl and Jamie could have survived the homing missile that they ate during that? Because if Amber can live from a direct hit from those napalm missiles, what's to say that they couldn't survive, or one of them at least could
Well,
survive?
if you think about Shadow, right, the vehicle that Loud and Quiet were driving, that goes off of a cliff and they both survive. And I don't remember like any safety airbags or anything like that. They both pretty much left that unscathed. There was definitely some injuries, but nobody lost a limb or anything like that. Um, Obviously Loud ended up shooting himself. So I think this is borderline Fast and Furious rules, in terms
yeah.
of yeah,
I
they're
was
they're
just
gonna
thinking,
live
yeah,
the crashes. Like I mean, look what happened with Stone's face in the machete, right? Like,
yeah.
or
It's an
the
axe.
axe,
Yeah.
the axe. That's right. Quiet's axe. So they're gonna be a little bit tougher to kill. So yeah, and the fact that uh Tinker has like all these prosthetics, perhaps she can have stuff replaced, just fine. We're not going to think too much about the actual mechanics and biology and anatomy, right? So because we already see that she has like all these prosthetics, like she can probably still be brought back the next month. So shout out to Angel. My apologies, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but we've been following each other for a while, and I've been enjoying seeing some of her stuff as well. So yeah, really fun follow there. Okay, let's go to. You guys want to move to the Holy Men or?
Well,
Oh,
I thought you were saying
sure.
the milkmen you wanted to go to before
Yeah.
the holy
Okay, why
men.
not? Yeah, with the Milkmen. You know what? Let's wait for Radek to come back to touch on the Milkman because so you guys can talk a little bit more about Pizza Boy, I guess. Um,
Okay.
you guys were
I
really wild up
guess
about that.
I guess the best way I can like start off by that whole thing is the whole bar situation was interesting, and I like how they explained that all these different characters, some that we knew, some that we didn't know, were all a part of being milkmen and so on and so forth. Again, a pizza boy being a milkman, that makes sense, right? I find it funny that they did refer to Petunia as Petunia, not drag queen, which it was her name in Twist Metal 4. um but for me, with the whole thing, I thought it was cool, the backstory behind Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary has kind of a Harley Quinn aesthetic and kind of characteristic to her, probably because they're trying to take the popularity of Harley Quinn and like fuse it into this character. It makes sense. But she was really cool. Pizza Boy didn't get a single line besides squeak 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 when getting punched and then head bashed in. But I did find it like Slam's explanation of like everyone's nicknames are very important around here. You've got Petunia, you got Pizza Boy, you got Bloody Mary. What's yours? Mr. Slam. Oh, why is that? Because I can smash anything with my massive dick. And for me, I'm glad that they didn't kill off my boy. I'm glad that they didn't kill off Mr. Slam. But at the same time, why could we have had like a badass, like, nerdy character like Simon Wilbone, with a front loader? Like, why did it just have to be the massive penis?
Oh, most badass.
Yeah,
I don't
Tyler,
understand how to get any more badass.
I'll let you take the reins after this comment.
Yeah,
But
go ahead.
I don't know anything about that actor. I understand. I believe he's an actual barkeep. And so that casting could have been very much like we need somebody who can work behind the bars, and this guy was probably the closest in terms of look, kind of like the Gunther from Friends, right? Like we need a guy who can work the cappuccino, and he ended up being Gunther from Friends.
Yeah.
Which by the way, before I forget, remember Mike and Stu when they're talking about big balls, and then Mike does like the motion, and he's like, "Oh, this ASL for big balls." Did anybody get like the whole Geller like "fuck you" vibes at all?
If I wouldn't have seen your tweet, I probably wouldn't have been thinking about it.
I
Okay,
never caught on to that.
okay. And Radek, that sounds like a blind spot for you because you were again born in '98.
Yeah, I'm kind of lost right now, but I
Yeah,
assume it's something from the 90s or 80s.
I thought
Yeah.
Friends was huge with Zoomers these days.
Yeah.
I'm more of a Seinfeld kind of guy.
I'll send you a clip. I'll send you a clip. It made me think that, but then watching back, I was like, maybe it isn't, but it also could be. So, be really
Have you
interesting to
looked
see.
up to see if that is ASL for big balls?
You know what? I did not. I will try to Google that next.
I'm googling it right now while you
yeah.
guys talk.
There you go. All right, Tyler, Mr. Slam, you're the MVP of this for you. Sounds like.
Oh yeah, I was just when he first said why he was named Mr. Slam, I was immediately at that point I was like, you have to pay this off. Like, and they don't
Absolutely.
fully. You do get a huge outline of what that thing looks like.
Understatement.
Yeah, but just the when he's preparing for the show, and it seems like everyone else's conversation, everything that's going on in everyone else's lives stops, and everyone comes inside to witness Mr. Slam. No, yeah, it's that's one that I had no idea it was a game character, but that if you're just going to start pulling random things, you're not going to make him a big character. That's an easy way to win my heart is slamming stuff with your dick.
Now, given what's going on in their world and their situation right now, either of you guys eating that watermelon afterwards?
I mean,
if it was through the pants, sure.
Yeah, which it was like, yeah,
Right, right.
like I think we're like secured to do that. Like I don't want no dick melon, so
Like, I like how Reddit kind of fiercely shook his head at them, like, well, hold on now.
Yeah, because watermelons are must be pretty scarce in this world, so it's like you can't
Right.
really pass that opportunity.
How
So
many watermelons is he going through? Like one a day? Is that once a week?
that's got to be a Friday night show. That's what it's got to be. Is like a Thursday or Friday night show.
Yeah, I mean the
Yeah,
milkmen have to be pretty well off if they're just wasting watermelons.
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, yeah. And there was that little encounter in the beginning. It almost appears that they get free gas because how do you pay for that? You're pumping it yourself, but there's nobody out there to pay. So a little
Yeah.
dangerous. I feel like vultures could come and siphon all that gas, but not gonna think too much about it. Um, let's see. Any other milkmen you guys
I
could
do
think
want to give
about?
I think Jaylee kind of touched on this, but I don't know if it's kind of like a meta commentary, maybe not, how like Mr. Slam says like code names are really popular around here. Because like we're Twisted Metal fans or like hardcore Twisted Metal fans, so like we know the difference between the vehicle and the driver. But like for a casual like player of video games, it's like, oh, Sweet Tooth is Sweet Tooth. Like you don't know his real name is like Marcus Needles Kane, or you don't know Mr. Slam's real name is Simon Whittlebone. So I do kind of like how it's like, all right, you have a code name in this world. So, and the code name is like the vehicle you drive in the game. So I kind of like that moment. And
It,
shout out to, oh, sorry.
it's like when they were talking on the radios and she was saying Twister to Flower Power, Twister over and stuff. Like, yeah, code names are like call signs on DB radios and stuff, or I believe that's what they're called. Hand
CB.
radios, CB radios. Thank
CB.
you. Yeah. CB radios, like, yeah, like that's kind of their code names for communications and stuff like that. So yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense why that would be so important. And it's not just the name of your vehicle. So again, Evelyn was probably John's kind of code name. Now it's Roadkill. Well, not anymore, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, I like that he has no choice but to give that up, and Roadkill is their car together. Uh,
I do have an update for big balls.
oh yes,
A-
ASL.
ASL for testicles is this, and then big is this.
So it wasn't
So
far off.
it's pretty close. It's pretty
It is
close.
He
pretty
was
Oh,
close.
close.
wow.
I tried looking it up. I couldn't get anything besides a guy doing it going, big balls, big balls.
Oh
That's all I
no.
could get.
Yeah, Radic.
Oh, just two more things. The first appearance of Pit Viper in over 28 years, which was pretty shocking because Pit Viper, Angela, I can't remember her last name in the game, but she's only appeared in the first Twisted Metal game. So like seeing her was like, oh wow, I like out of all the characters, I would not expect Pit Viper to be in there. And I do like that she survives, possibly hinting that she's gonna be part of the tournament next
Yeah.
season. And I also like that she's the rat. Like she tells Agent Stone, like, oh, they're going to New San Francisco. Cause like in the game, she's also like a rat for the LAPD trying to stop Calypso's tournament. So I kind of like how they tie her character arc in the game in the show. And she's only in like 2-3 scenes. But I do
She's like
like
wearing green, right? She's green and kind of like in the shadows, kind of like she
yeah,
didn't have
kind
like
of.
anything huge,
She had
Right.
right?
like
Okay.
dark like
A
blue
piercing.
or
She had like a
green
nose
lipstick,
piercing.
nose
Well,
piercing as
the
well.
main
Yeah.
thing is like she had the necklace that had the
The
snake
snake. Yep.
logo from her car on the front. Now, what's funny to me is, and I'm actually excited to see this. Maybe season 2, Pit Viper is in the show, right? Like we see Pit Viper as that vehicle. Maybe if there's a season 3, because again, they just recolored Pit Viper from 1 to 2 for Krista Sparks to be Grasshopper. So maybe we'll go from Pit Viper to Grasshopper, and maybe we might see, a father-daughter reunion of some kind. I honestly, I would love for them to expand on Krista Sparks, not the Krista Sparks from 2012, but the Krista Sparks from 2 and head on the daughter of Calypso. Me personally.
Yeah, I really prefer. I like 2012, but like I know classic TM fans prefer Krista Sparks in 2 and Head On, and I do think that's like the correct path for them to go on with the show, like you said, with the whole connection to Calypso. I actually think that's like one of the coolest endings in Twisted Metal 2. It's probably like top 3 for me. because it's
Mhm.
really adds so much lore and character to Calypso.
Yep.
And one last thing about episode 7 that I do want to shout out. Well, two more things. Well, like you mentioning the snake on Pit Viper's necklace, I do
Yeah.
want to give a shout out to the costume designer of the show, because for Roadkill's gloves, you actually see like a spider, and some other drawings, and those are the actual tattoos John Doe has in Twisted Metal Black. So I thought that was a really neat touch. And I got to shout out Bloody Mary. I thought like definitely Harley Quinn kind of vibes. I see where you're getting that from, but I thought like because Bloody Mary in Twisted Metal Black is a psychopath. So
Yeah.
I kind of like how she's also a psychopath in the show. And
I think they all aren't they all?
yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah. I think they all need to bust a nut a little bit too. There's no porn. There's
yeah,
no more
they all
porn. You
deserve to
gotta,
be sentenced in Blackfield Asylum for sure. And
yeah.
like, I also love that Sweet Tooth line, Blackfield Asylum, the best 10 years of my 25 to life. Like that line really that's like a really great line. And
It was a good line, yeah.
I love that Bloody Mary survives because we see her on the tournament bracket. So it's like, is she going to be like in the game? Sometimes drivers come back as ghosts and compete in the tournament. I don't know if they're going to go that supernatural with it, but I am glad that Bloody Mary is still alive.
The only other big person that I could think of, and let me know if there's anyone else you could think of before we move on to basically just Raven.
I've got one.
Okay.
Oh, Haggard Loner. Does anybody remember Haggard Loner?
No? Is he like the homeless guy, like the shirtless homeless guy?
Yeah, the one who
oh my God.
oils himself up with
necrophiliac.
vegetable shortening.
Yeah, the cocoa butter guy, right?
And he has the greatest gas mask jockstrap. On that. The design of that bottom piece is just spectacular. If they're not selling that on a store somewhere, they're missing out.
Taboo, for the Portland people, we know of Taboo.
I'll make one if I have to.
Sure. Just real quick, if you guys aren't on Instagram, I'm blanking on who shared it. It might be Tamika, who works in the costume department. I think it was her, but somebody did share Anthony Mackie standing in between that actor and his stunt double, both wearing the jockstrap, the gas mask jockstrap. So it's kind of funny because he's standing there amused. I think he's kind of pointing at both of their junks, But Tyler, I'll send it to you if you haven't seen it yet. But you guys gotta go. Yeah.
Glad check to hear that there's multiples of those in the world.
Yes. So there you go. Maybe I can ask one for you.
Yeah.
But that was just another scene where it's like, oh, they're not shy about going to some weird, gross places.
I just thought about it, but before we move on to Raven, let's save Raven last, just because of like the ending as well. I guess we still got Dollface. We'll touch on Dollface, but Preacher and the Holy Men. That's just Jason Manzukis. So I know nothing about Preacher, but in the trailer, I knew of a character named Preacher, right? Like you kind of know that I just bought this Twisted Metal book. I still haven't gotten all the way through it, but when I saw a glimpse of Manzukis, I was all like, that kind of reminds me of like that Preacher character, but it could have been anybody. And for him to actually be Preacher, and I was like, well, I know that these characters aren't really fleshed out in the video games, but I was like, this guy, he's kind of a badass, and I think all he wants to do is fuck a car. That's kind of what it sounds like. And I feel like Jason Mantzoukas has made comments like that in their reviews of like, how did this get made? Like talking about fucking a car, probably like in the Fast and Furious reviews, because he loves those movies, unironically. So
I thought he
was
was
the perfect guest.
He was fantastic. Like Jason Mantzoukas, he's one of those actors. I feel like he should be bigger because everything I see him in, he's never misses. Like he appeared
fully
in
commits.
Exactly. Like he appeared in one episode of Community, and that's like one of the episodes I remember the most because he's like the angry acting instructor, just like talking shit to Ken Jeong the whole time. He's also in the episode of Parks and Rec where he's just talking shit to Chris Pratt and Adam Scott the whole time. And he's got like such a memorable cadence to him, like the way he like deadpans, like, oh, shut the fuck up, man. And like everything he said was just so funny, dude. Like he just like takes a line before he starts fighting, he starts like, getting up himself and kicking ass. Like his delivery was on point. He's in terms of like him being the Preacher character, Preacher in 2012 is a little bit more, I would say, sympathetic. Actually, a lot more sympathetic compared to Jason Mantzoukas' portrayal of Preacher. But in Twisted Metal Black, like his whole thing is like I can't remember exactly, but he's like blinded by like a divine force like in his head, and he ends up like massacring a church, even the
So
baby.
I can clarify that.
Thank you.
In 2001's Twisted Metal Black, his whole thing is that he believed that this baby had possessed him, that it was the Antichrist, and what he thought he was doing was a exorcism, right? That's what he thought he was doing. It was supposed to be a baptism, but basically the demon, the baby didn't possess him. He was always that evil, and from what Calypso explained to him, and he had murdered this child. And in the Twisted Metal Head On Extra Twist edition, David Jaffe said, we actually wanted that scene to go a little bit darker, where he's drowning this little fucker, and his little chubby arms and legs are kicking. They wouldn't allow that, of course. But
that sounds like David Jaffe.
Yeah, that does.
Yep.
But one of the things that was said is that at the end of Twisted Metal Black, the baby didn't possess you. You were always this evil, and he tries to exorcise this demon multiple ways. And at the end, he finally gives up and kills himself, jumping off of a building. And you hear the car and the car alarms going off down below. But they kind of made mention of that. Except this is like, if again the Twisted Metal tournament didn't exist, he, instead of being a man of God, trying to find his I don't know what the word
Retribution.
would be. Retribution, yes. Instead of trying to find that, he just accepted the world's fucked, and like the 7 deadly sins or the 7 deadly delights or whatever, and kind of playing into it. I just loved the reference to that. And Coke Jesus is my favorite thing ever. Coke Jesus got a right hook. God damn.
The idea that they still have Coke in the apocalypse, that's crazy, because
that's a lot of Coke.
It is. And I was thinking, like, I thought it was interesting that like all the different communities that we had seen, they didn't have like some sort of drug a la RoboCop 2 with Nuke, like just some sort of weird post-apocalyptic drug that's only exists in the world. The only thing we've seen so far that I can remember is like Coke, and like Preacher has most of it. And I have to go back and watch it because I feel like Mantzoukas did like something kind of weird when he took that, but it was just like one of those moments where like I'm gonna need to go back and rewatch that because it was just kind of an interesting thing that he did. I don't know.
It was funny. Him doing, it's like 4 lines of Coke just all at once. He just kind of shoves his face into it.
Okay.
It's funny because that's contrasted with maybe the worst doing of a line of Coke by Bloody Mary in I think the episode before, where she like has it on a knife, and you can watch as like the whole thing is off to the side and she's just like sniffing a knife. I had to rewind it. It was like, okay, no, got nothing, absolutely nothing. But
yeah. Now that you mentioned that, there we go. So that was interesting. And she did, I think she did leave, like she let some drop off of that knife as well. And like I don't remember what movie it was, but I believe was it Pulp Fiction? I mean, I'm sure a lot of movies usually it's just like vitamin E, right, or like something that they actually snort. If the actor there does something, usually it's like one of those vitamin pills that they just smash up. So
I also do want to give a shout out to this, like the whole, like just seeing the different factions in the world, like the Holy Men, like were not what I was expecting, excuse me. And like one of my favorite moments is like some guy like rolling up a joint and then he dips it in the paint. Yeah, he smokes it. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude. And then they
dinner for the sinner or something, he said, like that.
Yeah, something like that. And then they give hand Quiet and John and Quiet the drinks, and it's like, oh, like this tastes weird. Oh, that'll be the Coke kicking in. And they're like, oh shit. And that's like one of my favorite tropes in comedy movies is like when the main characters get accidentally like ingest Coke because like everyone's on edge and like, oh, it's always going to be hilarious. And Yeah,
I
the
think
scene.
she asked like what's the crunchy thing? He's like, oh, that's the Coke. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I
And
I
I
I had
oh sorry.
something like oh no, it's stupid. It's a tangent. I was gonna say I had something similar happen to us at a bachelor party in Vegas where somebody had put Molly in some of the drinks, the guys. So some of the guys were drinking and were like something tastes weird, and we found out one of the other guys put Molly in some of our drinks.
Oh
So
fuck.
anyway,
Yeah,
yeah,
fuck
yeah,
that.
guys do that. I mean, it wasn't enough where like we all got jacked up, but it's just one of those things.
Just
But
gotta be
yeah,
careful.
you gotta be careful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's basically why I brought up the story. Thank you, Radek.
Yeah, and just to finish off my point, I love how like it's like a very Twisted Metal 2012 thing. You got the Holy Men faction. Later on, we see the Dollface faction. Sweet Tooth tries to build his faction of clowns, like the Clown Gang. So I assume next season he's gonna rebuild that crew, hopefully. But it's just nice seeing some Twisted Metal 2012 love in the series.
Let's see, Dollface, right? So we find out that apparently she is. I think in the picture, I believe the sister looked older, if I'm not mistaken. Is that
Right. She looked a little older than John. He looked like the
in the
youngest
photo?
child, in my
Right.
opinion.
So regardless, Dollface, that's also a blind spot for me. I understand in Black that the mask is like locked, and I believe Calypso promises her the key or something if she
Yep.
wins.
Basically,
So
the lore behind that is that she wanted to be out of the mask, and Calypso says, "If you win my contest, I'll free you from your mask." With the monkey paw that, hey, you got to kill the guy that put you in the mask in the first place. And at the end of that, she says, "You know what? I like my mask," and then she still kills the guy that locked her behind him because he was mean to her. Like, why couldn't he just be nice? Like, that was her whole reason. And something we found out through Tactical Bacon Productions, who is a very good YouTuber, highly recommend. He found a bunch of like alternate like endings or cutscenes. And one of the things that was alluded to is that Mr. Crevice or whatever his name was supposed to be Dollface's father in that game. That's what was alluded to. And then in 2012, it's Krista Sparks. Taking the name from, Head On and Twist Mel 2 and applying it to Dollface, but she's a supermodel and she gets one little scar, like that was because the scar I've got right here, and she thinks she's ugly. So she goes to this doctor and he puts the mask and it latches onto her, and then the doctor's gone. And all she wants is the mask off. And then when she gets her wish, she's like, no, never mind, changed it. I want to be the biggest superstar. I want everyone to know my name. I want to be on the biggest runway. And he does that, and she gets ran over by a plane. So
I knew at some point we would see a Dollface because I try not to look through the IMDb casting just to kind of, keep my first binge like sanitized from like things that I've seen out there, with the exception of the official releases. And so, when you go start digging in credits and things like that, that's when you come across spoilers sometimes. So I did see somebody credited as like Dollface Army. So I figured at some point we would try to see Dollface, or at the very least followers of hers. So we do get this, and she mentions that she's her brother is John. So I don't know if you guys have like, you guys may have videos in the work for this theory, but what are your guys' thoughts on Dollface?
I'm very glad we did get to see her. To me, she's like one of the most iconic Twisted Metal characters because I just think her design is like really cool. And her being John's sibling, very did not expect that at all. Like that was like one of those twists. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So there's a lot more to this family history with John. And speaking of John, like that scene with him, like finally finding like the old photos, his old house, but him saying like, "Nah, man, I'm done with that. That was me from another lifetime. I'm my own man now." I thought that was a really well done conclusion to John's character for the first season. But I'm very excited to see what Dollface and her gang is up to. Like, especially like her whole gang just screaming, like, ah! I'm like, oh my god, man! Like, I'm getting creeped out. So, I'm very happy they did include Dollface. And what's funny about you mentioning the IMDb listing is like they did a premiere for the show in New York City, like 2 days ago, like 2 days before the show premiered. And like there was a video of like showing the different outfits of the show, and Dollface was there. I'm like, oh, okay,
Right.
cool. Like she's
And
probably gonna
Sweet
be like,
Tooth's suit, right? Like it was
yeah,
like yeah, they had the costume there. Yeah. So you're right. I should have thought about that too.
yeah. So like I was like, okay, so Dollface, like in my mind, it was like, oh, she's gonna be like one of the characters in like the bar in episode 7. Like it was a seer in the background. So by the time we got to that scene, I completely forgot about Dollface like being in the show at all. So just like when you see Quiet like look up and then like cuts to Dollface is like slowly like turning her head, I'm like, oh, let's go. That's when I got goosebumps. I'm like, yes.
It was definitely pretty creepy. Jaylee?
Yeah. So with me, one, when I saw the girl that was playing Dollface, I honestly thought that maybe Samoa Joe had given a little ring to WWE and said, "Hey, can we get Bianca Belair? Look her up. She looks just like the actress that is playing Dollface with the hair and everything. And just how she talks, she sounds like Bianca. But Bianca Belair, I think would have been a good role for John's sister. But the fact that they include Dollface again, I still have always liked the black interpretations of characters more than any other version of any character, but I don't mind this. I think it's going to make for an interesting scenario, especially now that she has Quiet with her and Roadkill is disabled. Does that mean that John's going to find Roadkill? Does that mean they're going to enter Quiet in the tournament under a mask and John's not going to know that it's Quiet? What does that mean? Like, obviously Dollface is going to be in the tournament, whether that is his sister or his sister plus Quiet, or Quiet like representing this gang of Dollface members. But when it comes to me, I've always considered Dollface to be one of those more interesting characters. And now that Darkseid, Juggernaut is what we thought that they were driving in earlier in the show. What is Darkseid going to look like? Is it going to have like the police car strapped to the front, which is my favorite version of Darkseid? Is it going to be a little bit more like its 2012 counterpart? Is it going to be a little bit more like the original Mr. Ash driven vehicle? Who knows?
Tyler, any thoughts on Dollface? We'll move on to Raven.
No, not really. Just not familiar with any of the backstory, and we just kind of get that little glimpse. When I saw her, I just immediately went to the first Purgers from the Purge election year. The all the women standing there with the masks just reminded me of that. Second best Purge movie.
I have yet to see that. I do want to. It's just one of those things. Long list of things I need to see.
Skip the
Let's
first
go
one.
Okay, election year. That's the one to start with. So Nev Campbell as Raven, puts on the show a little bit in the very beginning when we see her when she hires John and continues to manipulate him in that last episode. I don't know what you guys think about this portrayal, Raven. I just familiar with the name.
I guess I could start because again, I actually did a little video about Raven before the show came out. As soon as we found Nev Campbell was going to be portraying Raven, I immediately jumped on this because Raven, in a lot of people's opinions, is one of the more innocent characters in Twisted Metal Black, one of the most beloved characters in Black. The thing I'll say about it is when I first saw her in the bar, I immediately thought her performance feels very robotic. It feels very fake. Like was she just not trying? And then as soon as John leaves, as soon as he leaves the town and you see her just take this thing, give it back to his mother, I'm done with him. I was like, there she is. There's Nev Campbell. There's Raven. Because for me, I was just like, this is not Raven. This isn't how she would act. Like I get what they're going for, but like was this supposed to be a more mature Raven? Is this the hero of New San Francisco? Like she was supposed to be the hero of Midtown in Twisted Metal. I forget what the sequel. It was Twisted Metal Black 2. What was supposed to come out?
Lost Harbor.
Yeah, I think that
Harbor
was
City.
Lost.
I can't remember.
Twisted Metal Lost is what they called it.
Yeah.
But what are they going for here? And then as soon as you see her snap into actual Raven, and then we get to him coming back and you see her in all purple and you see she in the initial scene, she's got the pendant covered up around her neck. Then you see it whenever they get back in town. She's wearing purple, she's wearing black. Then you see her in the bar later on with everyone standing around, discussing John, and she's messing with a voodoo doll. And I'm just like, oh, here we go. This is Raven. What's going to happen? And then you hear her mention the tournament. And that was the biggest screaming moment for me, was jumping up whenever I see it go from that, and she's explaining, the first of its kind. This is the first tournament. This isn't like the 10th tournament. This is nothing like that. This is the first tournament of its kind. And she obviously has a wish. And I think we all know what that wish is. They literally have reference to it in the first episode, Kelly's bar. She wants her best friend, it could be, it was alluded to in Twisted Metal Black that she was her soulmate, her lover.
Yeah, Jaffe did confirm that.
Yeah, that it was alluded to that. Is that what she's going for? Because she's obviously serious about this, and she's not willing to let John go. She needs someone to do this. Now, what I find interesting is, in Twisted Metal Black, she didn't try and revive Kelly. She just wanted revenge for Kelly. Obviously, we don't know how Kelly died yet in this universe. Is she going to wish to revive Kelly, or is this going to be, I want to know who murdered my best friend, or whatnot? Or what is her narrative? What is, the wish going to be if she does win? Also, is there a chance that John will find a way out of going to help her, and Nev Campbell will have to get behind the wheel? Maybe she'll salvage what was left of Shadow off of that runway and make her own vehicle. Will we see an actual Nev Campbell driving Shadow with like runny black makeup or something like that? That would be really cool, in my opinion. Honestly, she was a highlight of the show. Absolutely love her. Can't wait to see her in season 2. There are other characters that I'm more excited for in season 2 that we saw pinned up on that board, including my favorite character of all time, Axel. I'm more excited for Axel than anything, due to the fact that, one, you don't see him, but you see the back of him, which is what you mostly saw in any of the games if you're driving as him. But Mr. Grimm, again, all that alluded to in that one scene. But the line of until you leave them in a pile of twisted metal, like the way she delivered was so good. I'm genuinely, Nev Campbell highlighted the show. But Radic, do you have any opinions on Raven?
So my only touchstone to Nev Campbell is the Scream franchise. I love those movies. So seeing her play like a more villainous role was kind of new for me, and I thought she played it perfectly. Like the way she switches up and her whole attitude changes, I'm like, oh, she's actually like, she's nice at first, but now she's actually like scaring me. I'm like, oh, I do not want to cross this woman at all. And yeah, Jaylee, you're right. Raven's definitely one of the more sympathetic and innocent characters, like you said, in Twisted Metal Black. And I think it's like a perfect opportunity for in the second season. I would love to see a flashback scene with young Raven and seeing Kelly and like their interpretation of her, the source material in her story from Black would be really cool to see. Seeing like she was probably like more innocent back then, but then she loses Kelly, and then that's when she becomes more stern, more against the world. Like she wants to like be in charge, and like because of this like loss she has for
kind of like
Kelly.
Stone. Kind of like
Exactly
Stone in
like
a way, except not as sympathetic. Like how Stone was sympathetic. They had Raven be sympathetic in that game, and they're probably like gonna make the pure evil side, probably.
Yeah, and that's like just seeing Nev Campbell as a villain. I'm like, oh, I actually want to see you play more villainous roles. Like, like you're great at Sidney Prescott, but like you as a villain, like that's pretty scary. So, and yeah, setting up the tournament is awesome. Axel being there, I'm like, oh shit. Like, so watching the Uncharted movie, like small tangent, the post-credit scene was probably like one of the most excited I've ever been in a movie theater ever. Like I was like trying so hard not to like shout out loud in the theater, seeing them mention Gabriel Roman, the setup to Uncharted 1, Drake's Fortune. And this Twisted Metal setup beat that moment for me because I was just watching it in my home by myself. So like I had full reign to go like, oh shit, let's go. Just seeing Axel with the tires and seeing Mr. Grimm, like specifically Twisted Metal 1 Grimm. I'm like, oh, cool. Okay. I thought you were going to go for a more like Twisted Metal Black interpretation where he has like a literal human skull as a mask. But them using Twisted Metal 1 Grimm is kind of more exciting to me because like, what if, like, in the second season, he pulls down the sleeve and it's not like a human arm, it's just bone. And that I feel like that could be the perfect way to set up the more supernatural side of Twisted Metal. And I do want to shout out that we see a glimpse of Calypso as well. We caught his voice in episode 7, or I think it's episode 7.
Yep.
So like, and that moment was cute because I thought Raven was going to be like, judging by all the trailers, I thought she was going to be Calypso. Like that's how they're going to interpret that character. So it was nice seeing confirmation that Calypso is his own character. He's his own dude. He has his own motivations, and we see his back shot, and I think it's clearly 2012 inspired Calypso with the long black hair. Maybe he turns around and we see his like burnt face. If it's the Twisted Metal 1 Calypso, I would like that kind of face. I would lose my mind because that design, as terrible as it is, I love it. There's something like so endearing about it for me. I don't know. And I do want to give a shout out to Raven. She sent John on that mission, that 10-day mission all across America and back, just for a can of Rocky Road ice cream.
Well, that's not even what she wanted. She wanted pistachio. That's the monkey paw of Calypso. Is he fucked up my order? I asked for pistachio. By the way, how can you hate Rocky Road?
Yeah,
like pistachio?
Yeah. So it's one of them. It's one of them, you know. I'll say this about Raven. Not a whole lot for me to add, but shout out to Han Soto who played Noah. He was in the Vietnam flashback scene in Cobra Kai. He, Creases and Terry Silver's flashback. He was one of the soldiers. He's actually the one that makes them go do this thing. I'm keeping it vague because I'm going to try to get Radic here to start Cobra Kai. One of the other thing is like your guys' reaction to seeing some of these characters teased for a possible upcoming season. It was very much like my reaction to some of these characters from Cobra Kai that they brought back, where some of them I'm just like, I can't see them bringing back this character because of these reasons, but then they bring back these characters and give us these reasons and go, that's brilliant. That makes so much sense. So I can understand where you guys are coming from that. Now, the looks that we got from these characters, they're definitely left ambiguous, and they are at least designed to be familiar to those people that are familiar with the games and the looks of these characters. I'm willing to bet that none of them have been cast yet, and what we do see is just a rendering for now, and then once greenlit and these characters are brought back, they'll recast them, and then we'll see them differently. So even the back of Calypso's hair may be different the next time we see him.
Actually, to piggyback off that, according to the movie database, not IMDb, Jared Bankin's Shepard plays the body double for Calypso at the end there.
There you go.
That's cool.
Awesome.
That's kind of a secret Easter egg too, because in Head On, it was kind of alluded to in a way with the reflection of the glass that Shepard was kind of like a young Calypso. They kind of like made that kind of insinuation that they were one and the same. So like that's kind of like funny that they had the guy who played Shepard play Calypso in this scene.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay. I don't have very much kind of last thoughts as we wrap up here. Radic, Gamer Jamer, Gamer Jamer. I was trying to like be clever with your name, Gamer J Lee. I should have just stuck with J Lee, but anyway. Well, thank you guys coming on for giving us your knowledge. You guys are definitely experts in the game area. That's going to help me and Tyler out with our future coverage, where we'll be able to pull some of that info that you guys have shared with us. So we'll go round robin again, starting with Radic and then Jay Lee, then Tyler. Just kind of last thoughts on season 1 as a whole and where people can find you guys when you guys create your content.
Okay, so if anyone higher up at Peacock is watching this, season two, like this has to happen now. Like the way you guys set it up, like no way this has to stop with season one. Like this show, like kind of blew my expectations out of the water, and like just bring back the same cast, the same creative team, writers, costume design, everybody, bring everybody back for round two, because this show kind of was like out of all the PlayStation Productions projects, so like Uncharted movie, which I really liked, Last of Us on HBO, which is like an Emmy nominated series, huge success. And now Twisted Metal, like Twisted Metal is probably my favorite out of all those three, which you asked me that in 2019, I'd be like, oh, yeah, Last of Us or Uncharted would be my favorite, but they nailed the show. So I'm so happy they got the perfect creative team, emotional moments, card combat, love for all the games. So this season two, please season two. And as for where you can find me, I'm Real Radic, so RealRadec on all the social media platforms, so YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
All right, and Gamer J Lee.
So my final thoughts is again, season two. Yes, season two. New game, please. Please, please, new game. We've been waiting nearly 11 years. We're probably gonna have to wait another year before we get an announcement, but we need a new game. At this point, I don't care if it's based around the show as well, because you did so well with John Doe, you did so well with Quiet, you did so well with all these characters. I wouldn't mind that. Now, do I think that they're gonna do it sooner than later? No, I think they're gonna wait until season two, until there's an actual tournament, and build off of that. But we've already seen merchandising for Twisted Metal begin to drop. G Fuel, who I've supported G Fuel for years. You can kind of see behind me, there's like a bunch of G Fuel down there by my Sweet Tooth statue. Funny enough, but they dropped a collaboration of ice cream, which is a strawberry sour cotton candy flavor, with a shaker cup that I immediately tweeted out as soon as I saw it. I did pre-order it, to be honest. But when it comes to Twisted Metal, I want a game. I love the show, but I want a game. I want to be able to re-experience, and share this with people, not just through a media standpoint, but through a game standpoint, where I can go in with my friends that were, Halo fans that love lore, and be like, okay, this is Mr. Graham, and he did this, and in this version, he's this, and this, and this, and explain that story to them and get them involved. I've got people in my Discord that are like, oh my God, I've been hearing nothing but great things about Twisted Metal. I want to see it. Let's do a watch party or something, where now I want a season two. I want a game. I want to be more involved with this community. And I got to give a shout out to everyone on Twitter, everyone on, all the different platforms that have been so supportive to myself, to you guys, and so on, that have been absolutely amazing. It's so wonderful to see a community come together and be so welcoming to a bunch of people that, some of us know this franchise like the back of our hand, and some of us are just, getting into it, but come from different, parts of the world that are either, you guys are more focused around like the Hollywood side, the video production side, the movie side, where me and Radic, we're more focused around, the video game lore and, the games that we grew up with. And it's really nice to see all of us get involved into something that is so special. But if you guys want to find me, you can find me on all the major platforms. My name is Gamer J Lee, GamerJlee. YouTube.com/Gamer J Lee is the best place to find me. And I also need to get back to live streaming sooner or later. It's just right now it's video crunch time. So
I think just my thoughts, and I'm just pulling this out of nowhere, right? But this game, because they've talked about it, right? Like a possible another Twisted Metal game.
It's
Perhaps
been heavily rumored. Yep.
Okay, so maybe it's something where they were waiting to see how the show will do, and if successful, they're going to take some influences from the show. So kind of do like a little reversal here. Instead of the game inspiring the show, now if the show does well and can possibly continue on to future seasons, then they can build a game based around these new characters, have Quiet in there, right? Because if you just give us the game that's already, if there was already one in production, but they're like keeping everything close to the chest, they're not going to have a Quiet, right? They're not going to have a Loud. So with the possible success of this show, and we have been seeing a lot of people talking positively about it on social media. Perhaps we can get those characters that we have never seen before in the game. So, to Tyler, I'm assuming you want more gas mask jockstraps and to see
Mhm.
Mr. Slam's dick in
Yes.
season 2. Yeah,
If you can
that's for you.
if you can get Haggard, Loner, and Mr. Slam to team up and be a driving duo, that eight seasons, just keep them coming. I mean, if for those of us who are familiar with, how the game industry is right now, I'll be happy to break the news that you can expect in 2024 Twisted Metal, the show, the game, a mobile gotcha game. What everyone's looking for, you can combine your sweet
Where's my
tooth,
gasoline? I need to burn myself, please, for the love of God.
three bronze sweet tooths into a silver sweet tooth. We're all ready for it. No, that will probably happen, but that's I don't know anything about that. As for the show, like I'm really looking forward to season 2. I came into it not really expecting much, and I'm coming away from it ready to hear whenever they can get back. And Peacock, you've got something good on your hands. Pay the people what they're worth, and release your hard streaming numbers. I know you have them. We could use them. I'm sure it's doing well. Yeah, it's a great show, and I'm excited to get into episode by episode. There's a lot there, I think, to talk about.
Absolutely. There's, excuse me, just like Cobra Kai, the show, the episodes are very dense. There's so much to talk about. And, we just begun to scratch the surface with this, 2+ roundtable discussion. Yeah, I'm excited for our future coverage. For those, again, that are just kind of tuning in by happenstance here. Tyler and I will be taking a more analytical approach to our episode reviews. It's going to be long form. Reviews and discussions and interviews. I have 2 that I'm working on right now that I don't like revealing them until they've basically been recorded. Because you just never know. I don't want to promote something that may get canceled in the meantime, kind of thing. So, but I am talking to 2 individuals that work behind the scenes that everyone's going to want to hear from for sure. So, really excited to speak to them when I can. So that's going to do it for this discussion. Expect our review of episode 1. Will you drive probably the next couple of weeks? Because since I got these 2 interviews kind of lined up, I want to get to them when these people are available, because we just never know what's going to happen in the industry. There are other jobs they're probably working. And so I'll get those when I can get them. And then we'll get to our reviews when we can get to those. So thanks again to Radic and Gamer J Lee for joining us. And until the next episode, Jello.
Yellow.